Dragon Tamer. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 101, Wind Breath, Clay Golem. Liu Ming first bestowed upon Gong Weeksin the only potential third level class advancement divine grace he had received from this sacrifice. This was a class perfectly suited for her. Class, Wind Breath Swordsman. Potential, third level SSS. Description, a red class. This powerful swordsman infuses the power of wind into their sword intent. Controlling the wind's power in battle is as natural to them as breathing. Wherever there is wind, there is a ceaseless flow of wind breath sword energy. The wind's myriad forms and manifestations can be transformed into the profound secrets of sword energy in their hands. The deeper one's understanding of the power of wind and mastery of sword energy, the greater their ability to unleash the true power of a wind breath swordsman. When Gong Weeksin emerged from the engulfing mass of sword energy, a flicker of surprise crossed Liu Ming's eyes. A storm of sword energy, several times more powerful than his own early stage D-level primordial energy, instantly engulfed the ticket hall. Several already shaky doors vanished in the blink of an eye under the hurricane-like onslaught of sword energy. Gong Weeksin also awoke from unconsciousness, immediately staunching her raging sword intent. She stood there, as still as a pure white jade sword. Liu Ming then bestowed the second level potential class advancement divine graces of the Vajrastaff Mage, Dual Blade Berserker, and Heavy Fist Master upon Li Sangtao, Yang Fengchen, and Zhao Chen, respectively. Their performance earned Liu Ming's admiration. The magical seal warriors who had followed him had already gradually advanced, leaving only a dozen or so without classes. After bestowing the class advancement divine graces upon these last dozen without class advancements, a dozen or so remained. With the remaining class advancement divine graces, Liu Ming's first thoughts turned to the fat cook and the madman he had picked up. As extreme masters, they naturally possessed far greater potential than ordinary humans. He then bestowed the two class advancement divine graces upon them as well. Luo Yingren received the Soul Hunter Talisman class, which focused on hunting spirits. While this niche class also possessed potential above the second level, its primary abilities and skills required the crafting of spirit amulets through the hunting of spirits. Without the aid of a spirit amulet, they could only rely on soul shock to intimidate their enemies, leaving their own combat effectiveness in jeopardy. However, considering this profession involves frequent contact with supernatural entities, a strong heart is essential to withstand this, which aligns with the Luo Yingren's fearlessness of vengeful spirits and ghosts. Therefore, Liu Ming offered him this job change. After the job change, Luo Yingren shone in Liu Ming's eyes, as if coated in a layer of gold dust. Liu Ming knew it wasn't gold dust, but the protective aura unique to spirit hunting amulets. Besides their soul shock, they also possess another talent that can be directly manifested. Based on his experience, this protective aura, invisible to the naked eye, is believed to have a defensive power comparable to that of a coat of finely tempered steel. As for the fat chef Jin Sideo, because he was once the runner-up in the youth division of a provincial boxing tournament, Liu Ming offered him the job of an inch force fighter, a skill that demands the utmost skill. This class, a branch of the fighter class, is a second tier class. Like the brawler, it's also a second tier class, but beyond its basic abilities of inch force and dark force, it lacks additional abilities. Furthermore, its physical development is inferior to that of a warrior. If a practitioner lacks a deep understanding of inch force and dark force, as well as their mastery of combat techniques, their performance is often far inferior to that of an average warrior. In other words, if Fatty Jin's combat abilities aren't as impressive as he boasts, this second tier class will likely be rendered ineffective, even inferior to a first tier class. However, Liu Ming's choice was clearly sound, and his concerns were unfounded. When Jin Sideo emerged from the ball of evolutionary light emanating from his class transfer divine grace, his leg injury seemed to have healed during the evolution. In a split second, he unleashed 3 dizzying whip kicks, laced with transparent inch force like streams of air, rippling the air. This was followed by several swinging punches, imbued with inch force, that struck the ticket hall wall, instantly cracking it. Seeing Liu Ming looking over, Fatty Jin immediately put away his fists and feet, smirking and flattering. "Boss, what you give me is powerful. I feel like I could kill an African elephant with one punch now." "Boss, are those 2 turtle punches good?" Liu Ming nodded slightly and ignored him, but he was also satisfied with his decision. Without a deep understanding of martial arts, one would never have mastered the essence of inch force and dark force so quickly. The punches that had just cracked the wall clearly showed signs of dark force penetrating the body. Head chef K. Junran also transitioned to the rare auxiliary class of magical cuisine, a class with second level SSS potential. This is a magical class that transforms any ingredient imbued with yuan qi energy into a mysterious dish beneficial for yuan qi cultivation and physical fitness. In the future, hotels in safe zones wouldn't dare call themselves hotels unless they employed 2 magical cuisine or yuan qi cuisine professionals. They could only be considered small restaurants. Finally, 13 job transfer graces remained, and Liu Ming decided to keep them for now, selecting reliable and promising individuals from those who decided to stay tomorrow to transfer them. He then gave a small portion of the remaining graces to each search leader, who distributed them to his subordinates, based on kill count. He trusted his search leader's fairness. After all, the search team only numbered around 50, and it would be difficult for unfair distribution to occur under his watch. As the number of combatants increased, the corresponding oversight system and regulations would surely be improved. After all, the distribution was complete, and nearly 2/3 of the graces went to Liu Ming. After all, most of the monsters tonight had perished at the hands of Jizirong, the bloodthirsty sawtooth vine, Sumi, the giant cat, and the gargoyle. He felt entitled to the spoils, and even gave some extra to share with the others. Liu Ming pointed his magical camera at the pile of graces, and with a click, 200 or 300 graces were captured in his magical photo. He now felt like a human treasure. If anyone were to exploit him, they would immediately reap no fewer than 300 divine favors of various kinds. Almost all of the divine favors were collected, but several towering puppet-like creatures were left beside the altar. This was one of Liu Ming's most satisfying divine favors tonight. If previously, relying on thousands of laborers, he could build the ash wall in 3 days, now with these divine favor puppets, the progress could be accelerated by more than half a day. Name: low level clay golem level 1 description: a magical golem created by a magician. It belongs to the lowest level of golem-like magical creations. While their combat power may not be strong, their magic grants them powerful and comprehensive labor abilities. They can perform almost any human labor. Cleaning houses and laying bricks is no problem for them, and even mining and smelting are a piece of cake. The only thing to note is to replace their magic crystals before they become incapacitated. Liu Ming smiled with satisfaction as he looked at the 4 2-meter tall, earth gray, and sturdy looking clay golems. Although these massive creatures require magic crystals to operate, they possess a degree of autonomous consciousness and behavioral abilities, making them incredibly easy to use. Moreover, a single unit of magic crystal can power them to tirelessly work for 2 or 3 months. In later life, I have several of these clay golems serving as servants and cleaning the house. Controlling them is also incredibly simple. Upon first recharging the magic crystals, activate the golem's core using 6th-dimensional perception. The recent sacrifice had, fortunately, yielded hundreds of magic crystals. After activating the 4 clay golems and making them recognize their master, Liu Ming, accompanied by 4 of his best laborers, rushed to the square and began the frantic work of moving bricks and building the wall. Unlike ordinary humans who tire, clay golems can continue to work tirelessly until death, as long as their energy remains depleted or their bodies become inoperable due to wear and tear. They are truly exemplary workers. P.S. Here's a second update. This update was extended thanks to donations from Gentlemen of the Gentleman's Tribe, Ice Angel Archer, 99.8, Death Swastika Dream, and Carbon Inc. There will be a third update later. Thanks to Elkmix, Cheyenne Shinshin 123, Gentleman of Men's Tribe, Zin Mengayan, and Book Friend 111,108,195,246,079 for their support. I will update the 3rd chapter today and ask for recommendations, rewards, and support. Chapter 102 The so-called living necromancer. When everyone finally drifted off to sleep in the twilight after a grueling and nerve-wracking day, Liu Ming, accompanied by 4 clay golems, rumbled across the square, moving bricks and building a wall. Of course, the golems were the ones doing the work. Liu Ming, perched on Zhizerang's broad back, cradling the shrunken, now soundly asleep Sumi, began his daily yuan qi training. With its new properties, the yuan qi became agitated, erupting like a raging monster with uncontrollable energy. But Liu Ming carefully controlled the energies, preventing them from waking Zhizerang and Sumi, who were snoring beside him. This time, Liu Ming didn't suppress his 5 senses. Having just reached a new level, his training wasn't very effective tonight. As he practiced, he gazed up at the starry sky above, listening to the snoring of his 2 dragon pets, one large and one small, and the rustling of leaves in the cool summer breeze. A heartfelt smile, the most sincere since his rebirth, appeared on his lips. If it weren't for the stand apocalypse, spending a peaceful and leisurely life with these 2 little guys might have been a good choice. At this moment, Liu Ming suddenly had this incredible thought. The night passed quickly, and when Sumi lazily climbed off Liu Ming's lap and stretched, Liu Ming finally stood up and stretched his legs, which had become stiff after sitting cross-legged all night. This morning was destined to be a different one for many ordinary survivors. Many had risen early, spontaneously gathering in groups of 3 or 4 at the treehouse square. Liu Ming watched the figures approaching him, a half smile on his face. He didn't expect them to come to him before he went to them. Were they eager to reach the safe haven set up by the military and government, or did they have some other motive? Liu Ming remained calm, waiting for them to speak first. Less than an hour after Sumi woke up, the early morning bustle in the treehouse square had already begun. Liu Ming pulled out a watch from his pocket and checked the time. It was 7:05. Before Liu Ming could say anything, Liu Huchuan lost his temper, frowning, and asked, "What? Same as yesterday?" Still wanting to stir up trouble and leave. As if sensing the venom in Liu Huchuan's tone, and having witnessed the inhuman prowess he displayed during the monster attack, no one dared to contradict him this time. "Brother Chuan, we were impulsive yesterday, incited by those ringleaders. How could we be so foolish today, now that we've calmed down?" A man who had participated in the riot yesterday but not been a leader said with a flattering smile. In just over a day, he had learned the names of Liu Ming and his men. "Oh. So, what are you all doing here so early this morning?" Ma Jun, who had fully experienced the unruly nature of these people yesterday, asked with some surprise. He couldn't believe that these people had changed. "We just wanted to ask." The man stopped mid-sentence, as if hesitating and hesitant. The people behind him watched him hesitate anxiously. A burly young man standing beside him finally spoke with some trepidation. "We just want to know how to acquire that inhumanly powerful strength." He felt a wave of trepidation as he finished, unsure whether these inhumanly powerful individuals would answer him, or if they would be displeased with his question. The young man's words seemed to ignite the courage of the others, and a variety of voices echoed in the crowd. "Yes, Mr. Liu, I also want to ask, is it possible for us to become as powerful as your men? Mr. Liu, I don't want to go somewhere safer. I don't know if it's safe to follow you." The sudden voice surprised Liu Ming. He hadn't expected this question to be the first question these people asked. As expected, in every era, the admiration for the strong and the ambition to become even more powerful exist. He could see hope in the eager eyes of the crowd, the light of hope that they wouldn't leave their fate to the unknown tomorrow, but would hold it firmly in their own hands. Seeing this scene, Liu Ming nodded secretly in his heart. "Very good. My hard work last night was worth it, and finally many guys have come to their senses." But he felt that he should still give these people some advice. He believed that there were still some people among them who did not understand the situation. Looking at the thousands of people in front of him, he slowly spoke and poured a bucket of cold water on them. "I know that many of you still want to go to a safe place, but before you go, I also have some advice for you. The idea that many people want to seek refuge in the safe zone is extremely naive and ridiculous. The era when the interests of the people are above everything else is gone forever. Human life is the most valuable in peacetime, but on the contrary in the end times, it is the least valuable. Don't take your own life as small as a mayfly too seriously. Don't think that you can be on the news and TV if someone dies like before. People are dying everywhere in the world now. Even if we all die now, not a single one of us will show up in Wuling City. Do you think the safe zone is heaven? Wrong. It is indeed a paradise for the strong. After speaking, Liu Ming jumped up, and suddenly dozens of evil dragon spells blasted out from behind him, blasting a big hole in the square like a human-shaped anti-aircraft gun. It's like a paradise for people like me, but it's definitely hell for ordinary people like you. You think there's free food? Dream on. You belong to the lowest class in the safe zone. Even every grain of food must be earned with your blood and life. And expecting the troops in the safe zone to protect you is wishful thinking. When the monsters come, you'll be the first to die. If you want to live a better life in the apocalypse, relying on the government army or any other force is illusory. Only by mastering your own power and resisting threats can you survive well. And now, only I can give you the hope of mastering power and controlling your destiny. Liu Ming exaggerated the pros and cons a bit and said no more, just quietly observing the thoughtful crowd. As soon as he finished speaking, the crowd burst into discussion. I think so too. The government is always like that even in peacetime. How could they possibly protect the rights of ordinary people like us, now that it's the end of the world? Anyway, I don't want to go. Not to mention the dangers along the way. Even if I go, I'll probably be a grandson. I might as well stay here. But while there seems to be no shortage of food here, what about the injured? There's no medicine or doctors. Kid Wu caught a cold yesterday from overwork and shock. Now he's lying in the waiting room like a dead person, and his brother, watching beside him, looks so pitiful. This caught Liu Ming's attention, and he said to the man, "Is anyone sick? Take me." Cayman Wen's evolution greatly enhanced the power of the Light of Tranquility, perfect for performing his miraculous healing trick on these hesitant ordinary people. But when he arrived at the waiting room and saw the young man lying lifeless on the ground with his brother, who he estimated to be no more than 12 or 13, he realized he had misjudged his feelings again. Secret awakening. The young man was icy cold, not like a low-grade fever, but more like a corpse that had been frozen in a cold storage overnight. In Liu Ming's sixth dimensional perception, he could clearly see the young man surrounded by countless cold negative energies, an awakening oriented towards the negative energy system. Liu Ming quickly produced a magician apprentice class transfer scroll, and guided by his mental power, the transfer divine grace transformed into a ball of colorful light that quickly enveloped the young man before him. However, under the impact and fusion of the gray negative energy surrounding him, the colored light began to turn gray. As the ball of light gradually disappeared, the young man finally awoke from his coma. Evolver, Wuzangian class, Necromancer class potential, 2nd level SSS rank description, as masters of manipulating negative energy and mastering the mysteries of death. Necromancers' long dealings with death energy and the undead have gradually embodied the same lifeless nature as the undead, their bodies suffused with a drowsy negative energy. However, their strength belies their often emaciated appearance. They master the summoning of skeletons, zombies, and various other ferocious and powerful undead creatures. Liu Ming was inwardly astonished. A tactic he'd heard of in later generations had actually worked. Later generations heard that, if a class evolves simultaneously with a natural awakening, it could potentially lead to a metamorphosis and advancement. On a whim, I tried it, and it actually worked. A divine grace scroll for a potential 1st level magician apprentice class actually created a potential 2nd level necromancer. Everyone was stunned by Liu Ming's instantaneous resurrection. And then, when Wuzangian instinctively scrambled to his feet and a ball of grayish-white undead fire erupted from his palm, they were all stunned. A pitiful individual, thought by everyone to be dying from an illness, suddenly appeared before their eyes, transformed into a Superman in their eyes. PS. Here's the 3rd update from yesterday. If there's no update from the last night, and Fengsha doesn't speak, it must be because he fell asleep while typing. This update was added thanks to the tips from Dashi886, Hanglian Knight X, Tanemo, Jintelos Guoda, and Sui Fengai. Another supporting actor has appeared. The prototype of Wuzangian is Hudaling, an inspirational friend in the group, who earns money to support his younger brother's education. Brothers who want to play supporting roles can join the group. Chapter 103. 7 people left. Orange fire cat. The young man, with a dazed expression, stared down at the pale flame in his hand, seemingly unaware of what had happened. But as he gazed at the crowd surrounding him, a faint blush crept up on his face, as if he were enjoying the attention of so many people for the first time. Seeing the young man awake, Liu Ming ignored him and turned to the stunned crowd, saying slowly, "Everyone has a chance. Choose, stay or leave to safety. Let me make one thing clear, those who choose to stay will be ours from now on. I will give you the opportunity to gain power, but every reward comes with a price. Forget about leaving and work honestly for me. Choose." Those who want to leave, step forward. Although the successive miraculous events had intimidated most, a few finally stood up. "Excellent, you may leave now. Remember, once you leave, don't come back," Liu Ming said with a generous wave of his hand, signaling them to depart. Liu Ming was pleased with the result. Having only 6 people leave was already beyond his expectations. He figured that, as long as 70% to 80% of the people remained, he would be fine. However, the 6 people who chose to leave after hearing Liu Ming's words were clearly confused. One man, encouraged by his companions, slowly stepped out and timidly asked, "Mr. Liu, where are your car keys?" Liu Ming laughed, a cold and sinister smile. "Hey, car? Did a monster eat your brains, or are you still dreaming? Get out of here before I change my mind, or you won't have to leave, and we'll just hang it out to dry." As soon as Liu Ming finished speaking, the 6 people ran out of the waiting room with terrified faces. Just then, another man rushed out. He gritted his teeth and said, "Mr. Liu, I want to leave too. Get out." Liu Ming waved his hand, like he was shooing away flies. This man immediately rushed out, chasing after the 6 who had left first. He was the man who had pushed his girlfriend into the mutant's mouth to save his life yesterday, ultimately causing Fangan to be injured by the soul-sucking monster. He had originally wanted to stay and see if he had a chance to gain that powerful mystical power, but after what he had done last night, not only was his girlfriend and the ordinary people mocking him with scorn, but even those incredibly powerful fighters looked at him with cold, murderous intent. While staying here offered a chance to gain power, the situation was too dangerous. He might be killed by someone who disliked him before he could even reap the rewards. Better to leave now. Meanwhile, Liu Ming paid no attention to the thoughts of the departing individuals. Instead, he looked at a small creature that hadn't caught his attention until now. He saw the 12 or 13-year-old younger brother of the young man Wu Zhangyan, who had been thanking him profusely, holding a small orange kitten in his arms. The kitten was adorably furry and seemed incredibly attached to its brother, nudging its head into the young man's arms, timidly refusing to poke its head out. But in Liu Ming's eyes, this delicate little kitten wasn't as harmless as it appeared. Its orange body, speckled with fiery red, looked more like a stuffed toy than anything else. But to Liu Ming, it was clearly an evolved creature, a flaming cat. After 10 years of development, even niche professions were systematically studied and evolved. Not to mention the mainstream profession of animal tamer, with its high turnover rate, which, 10 years later, boasted hundreds of disciplines. Pet encyclopedia, taming, tracking, identification, pet diet, animal training, pet combat, animal trainer combat, pet coordination, and so on, all contributed to the emergence of numerous highly skilled animal trainers. Even a self-taught animal trainer like himself had invested in nearly every animal trainer course. He had a clear understanding of the types of evolved beasts, knowing their temperament and basic information at a glance. According to the pet encyclopedia, the fluffy kitten before him must be an evolved kitten. Orange flaming cat, cat species flaming cat subspecies. Attributes, fire, beast. Energy level 1.01. Potential, tier 2F level to tier 2A level. Nature, as fire type creatures, basking in the sun is part of their nature, especially the warm winter sun. They also enjoy roasting scorching steaks. This is a low level pet not uncommon in later generations. The pet catalog for Sumi and Gzerang should be classified as follows. Purple shadow flame tail cat Sumi, dragon type creature tailed cat subspecies. Attributes: darkness, shadow, fire, beast. Energy level: level 1D potential, level 3A nature, lethargy, camouflage. Zuanian dragon salamander Gzerong, dragon type creature dragon salamander subspecies. Attributes: earth, fire, water, beast. Energy level: level 1D potential, level 3S nature, timid, cunning. Of course, in later generations general pet catalogs, which only record ordinary creatures, there are no detailed descriptions of these two nearly 4th level transcendent creatures. Liu Ming approached the young man with a smile and asked, "Is it your pet?" Before the young man could answer, Wu Zhangyan, who had already been promoted to a necromancer, answered for his brother. "Mr. Liu, this is a kitten we found on the roadside before the apocalypse. It was pouring rain that day, and we saw it was soaking wet. Like us, it looked like an orphan without a parent, so we took it in. Are you orphans?" "Me too. Here, you can ask me if you have any questions." Liu Ming then handed the stunned and bewildered young man a scroll for the apprenticeship of a tamer. Liu Ming had received 3 divine graces for the job transfer to tamer, and this time he wanted to select a few promising apprenticeships. If they could all tame good pets, their potential would be immensely valuable in the future as they reached higher levels. Tamers can only contract one pet before reaching level C, but once they reach level C, they unlock a second contract. Only then did they begin to transform from mere necessities into mainstays. After all, 2D rank, or even C rank monsters, could undoubtedly deliver a performance comparable to, or even greater than, that of an average C rank melee professional. However, the early drawback of a beast tamer is that, if they fail to tame a suitable beast pet, they can only serve as scouts, rendered virtually useless in combat. However, for the young man before him, this orange-flamed cat was more than sufficient. His first beast pet in later life was even weaker. Fanged Grey Wolf Vog, wolf-like creature, Grey Wolf subspecies. Level: 1st level F rank. Potential: 1st level S rank. Nature: howling, grinding teeth, and a fondness for fresh, raw meat. According to incomplete statistics, there are nearly 10,000 beast tamers across the 7 districts and 6 counties of Wuling City. Among them, Chenjin, the leader of the Wuling Beast Taming Alliance and the Beast King Monarch, holds a high-level beast taming profession, a magic pet master. Although Chenjin's power level ranks low among the 16, his 3 7th tier legendary familiars command all the high rank members. His title of Beast Master comes from his Bloodspine Beast, Winter Frost Wolf King, and Flammabid Monarch. The Beast Taming Alliance's independence from the military and government, second only to the Demon Hunters Guild, and its status as the Wuling Safe Zone's strongest civilian organization alongside major factions like the Iron Crown, is largely due to Chenjin's immense strength and domineering personality. As a low-level beast tamer in his later life, he's also considered a member of the Beast Taming Alliance, so he's naturally well informed about these matters. However, Liu Ming is no longer just an ordinary beast tamer. He's a dragon breeder, a high-level profession with 3 dragon pets available at F rank. If he evolves again, his number of pets should increase accordingly. Beast tamers gain contract slots every 3 power levels. As a 3rd tier C rank beast tamer in his later life, he'll have 8 pets available. However, while searching for suitable contract creatures for the 7th and 8th pet contract slots in the restricted area, Li Mao's scumbag heavy sniper ambushed and assassinated 2 of his pets, a level 2 SSS Swift Wolf named Kuang and a level 3 Silver Leopard named Yunqian. His temples throbbed with rage at the thought, and he longed to rush to the physical education department at Wuling University that Li Mao had mentioned, and kill him again. He wondered if his appearance in this world would also change the fate of the small haven, where he had caused the deaths of everyone. He had to go and see if he had the chance, at least to save the lives of Aoyang Hui and Xu Chengbing, 2 of his closest friends in later life. P.S. Here's the first update. Chapter 104, Beast Taming Apprentice, Ice Wolf Cub. A behemoth, khaki-colored beast raced down the city streets like a tank, instantly slamming any vehicles in its path. Behind the beast, followed a black Hummer, brimming with 4 figures, 1 large and 3 small. Liu Ming was driving, naturally. 3 young men and women sat in the back seat. 13-year-old Wu Zhangting, an apprentice animal tamer. 12-year-old Shadonja, an apprentice animal tamer. 14-year-old Zhengfei, an apprentice beastmaster. These three were Liu Ming's chosen individuals for this shift to animal taming. The choice of 13 or 14-year-olds wasn't a whim. Later research revealed that teenagers, with their indeterminate temperaments and limited desires, wouldn't experience the same level of rejection and resentment from pets as adults. After all, animal pet contracts are about spiritual communication and integration. Therefore, Liu Ming had chosen a few young men. Besides Wu Zhangting, he had an older brother to look after him. The other two boys and girls all had their parents tragically killed at the beginning of the apocalypse, yet they had survived to this day, demonstrating their exceptional will and desire to survive. This time, he had brought them out to find suitable beast pets for these young apprentices. Typically, a tamer's pet's power level must not exceed the tamer's own, otherwise it could easily lead to disobedience or even rebellion. Therefore, simply selecting a few giant cats from Sumi's hundreds of subordinates as pets was unfeasible. However, Liu Ming remembered a litter of highly promising evolved creatures, possibly in a zoo not far from the train station. That evolved creature evolved just before giving birth, so the fetuses within it also evolved before birth. He recalled that a year later, the mother evolved creature and her cubs foraging for food had caused a commotion near Chengmao Garden. Less than 20 minutes later, they arrived near their destination. Sumi was the first to open the passenger door with her tail and leap out. Liu Ming parked the car right after him and stepped out, followed by three nervous little tails. Seeing their tense faces, one holding a small iron rod, another a dagger, and another cradling a small orange kitten, Liu Ming let out a laugh and said, "Don't be nervous." This scene reminded him of his first solo adventure into the forbidden wilderness in his later life, encountering the fanged grey wolf. It seemed he'd fought the fanged grey wolf for 300 or 400 rounds, using a dagger similar to Zhengfei's. Of course, it wasn't that many. At most, he'd be pinned to the ground by two wolf claws after 3 or 2 rounds. If it weren't for a sudden appearance of a saw-toothed hammer tiger that mistook both him and the fanged grey wolf for prey, forging a sympathetic bond between the two enemies as they fled, he would have likely perished by the end of the first year of the apocalypse, let alone the 9 years of apocalyptic existence that followed. Meow meow. Shortly after exiting the car, Sumi discovered the ice source Liu Ming had instructed her to find. Liu Ming, accompanied by 3 slow-moving tails, followed Sumi all the way toward the source of the ice. Sumi, meanwhile, retreated underground, following closely in the shadows. As they slowly moved away from the Hummer, dozens of evil dragon spell tokens suddenly appeared around Liu Ming, hovering like amulets around the 3 young men and women. If it were just him, he wouldn't have to be so cautious, but with 3 tails, he had to be more careful to protect their lives. With dozens of evil dragon spells protecting them, their safety wasn't a concern. When Sumi led the 4 to a second-floor observation deck at a zoo, Liu Ming spotted his target. A sign reading Wolf Park stood outside one of the enclosures. The bodies of several tourists, keepers, and guides lay scattered along the park's sightseeing path. Inside the wolf enclosure, a white creature the size of a bull lay in front of a den covered in dry grass. Pet Encyclopedia. Frost Claw Ice Wolf. Wolf Ice Wolf Subspecies Attributes. Frost, Ice, Beast Energy Level, Level 1D Potential, Level 2S, Level 2 SSS Nature. They favor any food containing frost and cold. If ice attribute food is unavailable, they will use their sub-zero body temperatures to freeze the food and then consume it. In the wolf den behind the white wolf-like creature, several fluffy, pure white wolf pups were rubbing their heads against the white creature's back. I think you're all familiar with how to sign a pet contract, right? Liu Ming reassured. Yes. The 3 boys and girls nodded vigorously. I'll lure the big wolf away in a moment. Each of you will go and tame a little wolf. Don't worry, although you're too weak to defeat those little wolves right now, Jizeli Rang will be responsible for subduing them. After you've tamed the little wolf, Jizeli Rang will take you to meet me outside the zoo. If you can't tame it for the time being, you can take one away. Old teacher, can I not have the little wolf? I want to sign a contract with Little Orange, Wu Zhangting said hesitantly. After struggling for a long time over how to address Liu Ming, they decided to call him teacher. Along the way, Liu Ming had given them a lot of intensive training on how to be a good animal trainer. Little Orange was the name of the orange tabby cat. Liu Ming ignored the orange kitten's annoyance and asked in surprise, "Oh, have you thought it through? These wolf cubs are much better than your worthless little kitten." "Teacher, I have thought it through," Wu Zongting said with a firm expression. "Okay, then you can just take one away. No need to sign a contract," Liu Ming ordered. "Let's begin. Be careful. Zherang will protect you." As soon as Liu Ming finished speaking, he and Sumi transformed into two cannonballs and launched into the wolf enclosure from the observation deck. While he had the ability to kill the adult Frostclaw wolf, a trainer's special affection for his pets prevented him from completely annihilating it. If luring the female wolf away would also achieve his goal, he wouldn't kill her. Seeing a strange cat and a human charging into its territory, the Frostclaw wolf leaped to its feet, its ferocious eyes fixed on the two uninvited guests. Without waiting for the Frostclaw wolf to react, Liu Ming rushed to the den, pretending to forcibly remove a wolf cub. Abu! The Frostclaw wolf roared with immense fury, transformed into a bolt of white lightning, and pounced at Liu Ming, only to be staggered by a casual blast of dragon magic from Liu Ming. Undeterred, the Frostclaw wolf's claws, encrusted with icy shards, grew to the size of a human head and charged directly at Liu Ming's face. Liu Ming retreated abruptly, ultimately not taking any of the wolf cubs. That was his initial assignment for his young apprentices. If the three little creatures returned empty-handed, they would no longer be worthy of being his apprentices. Their ultimate fate would depend entirely on their own. Although Liu Ming retreated empty-handed, he had successfully enraged the ice wolf. Its eyes were filled with frenzied emotion. Her cubs were her Achilles heel. Anyone who dared to touch them would suffer the wolf's wrath. With a crackling sound, the ice wolf's entire body was covered in ice. This was the power of the Frostclaw ice wolf's ice wolf armor. Like an ice spirit descending from the depths of winter, it instantly chilled the scorching air of the wolf garden on a scorching summer day. Seeing this, Liu Ming launched two more jet black tokens, striking the ice wolf's back, punching holes in the ice and nearly damaging its body. The wolf's back and head were its hardest parts, and Liu Ming had deliberately deflected the dragon's curse. He had come to steal the wolf cubs, and to steal someone else's child and then beat the mother half to death was a bit cruel. Therefore, Liu Ming had no intention of harming the mother wolf. The ice wolf, struck by the incredibly fast token, became even more enraged and charged at Liu Ming. Liu Ming immediately turned and fled, taking Sumi with him. After he gradually led the ice wolf away, four figures, one large and three small, took the opportunity to stealthily sneak into the wolf enclosure. Amid the panicked howls of a litter of 6 or 7 wolf cubs, Zherang extended a pair of massive claws and instantly subdued the cubs, whose aggression was no less powerful than that of a knife-wielding adult. Chadonjia and Zhengfei each selected a howling ice wolf cub, wailing in frustration under the beast's claws, and initiated a pet contract. The two contract lights imprinted themselves into the cubs' minds with little resistance. Wu Zongting also chose one of the cubs and held it in his arms, a kitten in his left hand and a wolf cub in his right, like a young dad. The wolf mother's sense of smell was incredibly sharp. After recovering from her rage, she had already detected the alien scent that had infiltrated the den. Ayo woo woo. Amidst the wolf mother's shrill high-pitched cry, the three cubs quickly picked up their cubs and followed Zherang out of the wolf garden. P.S. Here's a second update. This one was added thanks to the tips and support from my brother's 99.8, long-term purchaser of SKF boxes, Shenmue Floating Clouds in the Sky, Zimeng Sixiang DDR, Zinmengayan, and Universe's Singularity. I also thank my brother's 99.8, Zinmengayan, Zidachengmo, and NIUNAO** for their tips and support. Here are two updates together. Please recommend, tip, and support me. Chapter 105, Secret Realm, Fishing in Troubled Waters. After the three little ones followed Zherang out of the wolf enclosure and into the zoo, they lost sight of Liu Ming. As they frantically searched for him, Zherang had already spotted his master and, with his thick legs, ran over to him. The three boys and girls looked in the direction Zherang had run and saw Liu Ming standing on a billboard next to a telephone pole. Sumi rested on his shoulder, his hair, a messy mess, fluttering in the wind. While this scene would have been undeniably a sham at a Chinese nickname, in peacetime, it etched itself deeply into the minds of the three little ones. As expected of a teacher, this is a true master. This is the demeanor of master. Zheng Fei sighed, stroking his still bearded chin, seeming a little sad that he didn't have the same dashing beard as his teacher. Liu Ming leaped in front of the three little creatures, met their adoring gazes with a cough and said, "Let's go." He wasn't standing atop a utility pole several stories high to act superior in front of the three little creatures, but rather to prevent Ji Zhenrong, a rather unreliable fellow, from leading them astray. He was standing so high up, so he could spot them as soon as they escaped the zoo. As he drove, Liu Ming glanced in the rearview mirror at the two little creatures happily playing with the frost claw ice wolf pups, shaking his head and smiling. The two contracted wolf cubs played with Zheng Fei and Chadonja like two puppies, their tender pink tongues licking the little creatures' palms until they were wet, bringing a moment of laughter to the little creatures, who had only ever witnessed the cruelty and indifference of the apocalypse. The wolf cub Wu Zhangting finally carried out, without a pet contract, was far less harmless. From the moment he got in the car, he barked and threatened to bite. If Liu Ming hadn't instructed Sumi to restrain the unruly wolf cub, all three would have been injured. Finally, with Liu Ming's approval, Wu Zhangting signed a contract with the orange flame tabby cat, Xia Juzi, in the car. After becoming Wu Zhangting's pet, Xia Juzi clearly resented the barking, pure white wolf cub. Whenever the wolf threatened to bite, Xia Juzi would pounce and instantly subdue it. While the frost claw ice wolf's potential surpassed the orange flame tabby, Xia Juzi, born much older than the wolf cub, was far more capable than the wolf cub, demonstrating the true meaning of age. After each slap, Xia Juzi sent the wolf cub slumping and whimpering, and then meowed proudly, as if teaching it a lesson in cat language. Chadonja and Zheng Fei named their pups Mingxian and Liliang, respectively. As for the last uncontracted pup, Liu Ming decided to name it Bakesu. He recognized it was a female wolf. The Hummer was halfway to the train station when a flash of white light, like a bomb exploding in the air, suddenly appeared in the distant sky. Liu Ming stared at the sky, which, even in broad daylight, still shone with dazzling white light. A flicker of shock crossed his eyes, and his once relaxed expression instantly became one of anxiety. "Everyone, get seated," Liu Ming instructed, then suddenly slammed the accelerator. The Hummer suddenly sped down the road like a wild horse, nearly tipping over from the inertia of the children in the back seat. The acceleration reduced the return trip time by a full third. With a standard teleportation drift, the Hummer entered the treehouse plaza. Once out of the car, Liu Ming hurriedly gathered all the professionals and seal warriors. With a serious expression, he went straight to the point. "I'm taking some people out for a trip, at least a day, at most 2 or 3 days. Those who stay behind must be extremely careful during this time. Marjun, Liu Huchun, Gu Yun, Fangan, Luo Ziping, Han Piaoxu, and Jelin, come with me later. Everyone else, stay with Gong Weixin. While I'm gone, Gong Weixin will be responsible for security. Sumi's giant cats will also assist you. Let's go." Liu Ming quickly laid out his instructions. With an anxious look on his face, he led the 6 men and Jelin into the Hummer and headed straight for the direction of the flash of white light. If his predictions were correct, the first secret realm in Wuling City had appeared. Another reason humanity was able to survive the monster-infested apocalypse and rebuild the city's safe zone was within this secret realm. "Boss, it seems like a lot of powerful individuals are heading there. What is that place?" 6 men huddled in the back asked Liu Ming curiously. They had already encountered several waves of clearly formidable individuals along the way. Their destination was clearly the same, the area where the white light had suddenly appeared. Liu Ming answered as he drove, "Secret realm. What is a secret realm?" Everyone looked puzzled. You can think of it as another, completely independent mysterious dimension. But the environments are all very extreme. There might be a dense forest teeming with danger, a volcano with molten lava threatening to erupt at any moment, or a group of lakes and islands lurking beneath the surface. In short, once you enter, you must be extremely vigilant, as if you were dealing with a monster 100 times more powerful than you. Otherwise, you could easily get caught in a ditch. With that, Liu Ming stopped talking and instead searched his memory for any information about the secret realm. He did eventually find a lot of memories. However, since he was just an ordinary survivor at the beginning of the apocalypse, he knew nothing about the secret realm during the first 1 or 2 years of the apocalypse. Even if there were records of it in later generations, he knew that any valuable discoveries in the secret realm would go to the military, the government, the large organizations, and the powerful evolvers, leaving him, a low-level beast tamer in the future, with nothing left to eat. Therefore, he had no interest in the secret realm, and valuable information was pitifully scarce. Most of it was hearsay. However, these rumors happened to contain a fragmentary description of the secret realm Wu Ling had first encountered. Named the Crystal Cave, it was rumored to be an immense crystal cavern. Magic crystals, or ore stones, had been excavated within. Recall that, in addition to monsters, there existed a species of indigenous intelligent creatures called the Cave People. Even if Liu Ming racked his brains, he could not recall a single shred of other valuable information. Ultimately, he could only shake his head helplessly, memorizing the scraps he could recall. It took them 40 to 50 minutes to reach the source of the white light, near an abandoned, unfinished building near the outskirts of the city. Between the rooftops of 2 buildings, a circular opening, shimmering with white light, hung in mid-air. It bore a striking resemblance to the space-time rift that had appeared earlier. Outside the unfinished building, groups of sturdy-looking figures stood in groups of 3 or 5, pointing and commenting at the white light. The entrance to the unfinished building was barricaded by a group of armed SWAT officers. Liu Ming had just parked his car and gotten out when a short, bald, middle-aged man nearby offered him a cigarette and chatted familiarly. "Brother, you're here for that mysterious halo, right? You're late, bro. These military and government officials are already guarding the gate, preventing us ordinary people from entering." Liu Ming shook his head, rejecting the cigarette that was almost reaching his lips. He mentally grumbled, "You have 3 machetes on your waist, the tips still dripping with blood, and yet you claim to be an ordinary person?" However, the bald man's words also hinted at the possibility that this secret realm might be difficult to enter. This was consistent with the military and government's usual style. If secret realms were easy to enter, he wouldn't have lost interest in exploring them every time they appeared in his future life. Judging from the situation, the evolutionary classes, attracted by the scent of blood, were already numbering in the hundreds, and the number was growing. He wasn't afraid of these armed men blocking the way. He could simply watch from the sidelines and wait for them to let him in, then fish in troubled waters. Peas, because my number 1 little brother left, I was so upset that I couldn't type a single word all day. But I will still update 3 times today. The update time may not go until the early morning. The 3rd update is for my number 1 little brother Shanxi Jizirang, who ran away from home in anger. Chapter 106 Crystal Night Giant Anaconda. Goodbye. A white circle of light, similar to the one near the unfinished building, emanated from the ceiling of a pitch-black cave, illuminating the otherwise pitch-black cavern. Bang! Liu Ming plummeted from the 4 or 5 meter high hole. As he touched the ground, a sense of foreboding overtook him, causing him to quickly step back. As expected, the others and their 2 dragon pets followed suit. Fangan suffered the most, being pinned down by the crowd. Initially, he knelt on one knee, maintaining a nonchalant expression. But as Jizirang's weight, measured in tons, pressed down, a resounding thud, like his head being pressed into the ground, was followed by a scream. Fortunately, Fangan was the one pinned down. To call him a man of steel was an understatement. As soon as a steel heart domain opened, he scrambled free from the mass of people. The others, pinned down, suffered terribly. As Jizirang's massive body slowly lifted itself away from them, each of them grumbled, as if they had sprained their necks or backs. As if on purpose, Jizirang crawled away, its massive tail, weighing at least a ton, still slowly dragging them along. This made the group want to devour it alive. However, a glance at its ferocious mouth, wide enough to swallow an adult, and its mouth full of sharp teeth instantly dispelled this thought. Seeing this, Liu Ming said, "Alright, stop messing around. Let's go." Jizirang immediately lifted his massive tail, and the group climbed up. Illuminated by the halo overhead, they could discern their current location. It was a sealed cavern, its walls and ceiling uneven, covered in protruding natural crystals. The various crystals shimmered in the faint light of fluorescent ferns and mosses. The mosses and ferns covered the protrusions of the damp rock wall, shimmering in the plant's fluorescence. Ahead of them was a fork in the road, with two dark passages to the left and right. Liu Ming randomly chose the left passage and entered. The purple dragon-shaped flames on Suma's tail illuminated the pitch-black cave like a blazing torch. Liu Ming and Sumi, acting as a self-propelled lighting device, walked in front. The 6 people and Garlin walked in the middle, with Ji Zireng's massive body swaying at the rear. The 6 in the middle, shield guard Gu Yun, wielding the Frostfall heavy sword, and Steel Hut Knight Fangen, flanked them, vaguely protecting Han Piaxu, the only female ice mage in the group. Just as Liu Ming was wondering why he hadn't seen any trace of the people who had entered the secret realm before, a strange hissing sound of a reptile suddenly emanated from the front. Hiss, hiss, hiss. Stop. There's movement. Liu Ming stopped first, reaching out to stop Ma Jun and the others behind him. Clang, bang, clang. The sound of weapons clashing and gunfire rang out. Had the group just encountered a monster? Liu Ming felt puzzled. They didn't seem to be armed, so who could be responsible for these shots that looked like pistols? Despite the potential danger ahead, Liu Ming didn't pause. After briefly pondering the situation ahead, he continued to lead the group forward. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. This saying applies to any secret realm exploration. Almost everyone who has explored a secret realm in later generations knows that the place with the most activity is the place to rush to. It's definitely not a simple place, and there's a high probability of finding something valuable there. As the group neared the end of the damp cavern passage, which was too narrow for Ji Zireng, a vast cavern appeared before them. The ceiling was covered in massive yellow and blue crystals. Light yellow plants, resembling giant ferns, entwined around the crystals, emitting a brilliant yellow glow. The entire cavern was clearly visible under the fluorescent light. A strange giant python, half its body coiled, its upright part measuring 5 or 6 meters tall, hissed and flickered at the group within. A number of brass bullet casings were scattered on the ground around the python's body. Its body was a deep black, but not a dull, matte black. Instead, it was translucent, like black crystal and black gemstones, like a statue carved from black crystal, not a living creature. Crystal Knight Anaconda. Liu Ming spoke slowly, looking at this mysterious and powerful crystalline python. This creature was also recorded in later generations' atlases. Crystal Knight Anaconda, a snake creature, a subspecies of Crystal Anaconda. Attributes: dark, beast, crystal. Energy level: unknown. Potential: tier 3 S class. Nature: prefers to build its nest on crystal veins and enjoys consuming all kinds of crystal, with black crystal and black gemstones being its favorite foods. Description: an extremely mysterious snake species, found in various crystal mines. His own perceptive abilities were unable to detect its energy level, indicating that it was at least a top-level D-class creature. Liu Ming looked at the anaconda with a strange expression. Crystal Knight anacondas, in later generations' atlases, were so mysterious that few had ever seen them in person. Yet, this creature, so rare that its very existence was questioned by many scholars, now appeared before his very eyes. A group of people not far away continued to attack the Crystal Knight anaconda, but their bullets only sent sparks flying through its scales, seemingly carved from black crystal. The Crystal Knight anaconda remained motionless, occasionally twisting its massive body, as if it were tickled by the gunfire. It didn't rush to strike back at the strange creatures, simply lashing out with its tail, sweeping away those who swung their weapons. Often, a single, seemingly insignificant blow would cause those who slashed at it to scream and vomit blood. These weak creatures, to it, were mere prey. As the number of those who lost their fighting power dwindled, a playful expression flickered in the Crystal Knight anaconda's fist-sized eyes. Liu Ming, who had been watching the spectacle from a cavernous passage outside the cave, suddenly felt a jolt. Amidst the crowd, which should have had no connection to him, he spotted a figure he remembered with a familiar memory. Liu Ming's face was shrouded in confusion. How could it be her? Liu Ming's gaze was fixed on a figure in the crowd, firing continuously at the Crystal Knight anaconda. The figure seemed to be of high status among the crowd. people in front of her kept rushing towards the slowly approaching anaconda, and she stood at the very back, protected by everyone. Wang Zuking, a name Liu Ming was incredibly familiar with, was the deputy director of the procurement department of the Wuling Demon Hunting Society in the future. It wasn't this woman's future identity that shocked Liu Ming. Even when Lu Zuan, the second strongest man in Wuling, had just passed by him, he remained calm. A high-ranking member of the Demon Hunting Society wouldn't have surprised him. The real reason was the woman's future relationship with Liu Ming. As a third-level Lone Ranger, Liu Ming wasn't bound by any organizational constraints, but he also didn't enjoy any rights. In other words, he had to support himself. As a low-level professional, the easiest way to make a living, besides working as a bodyguard or mercenary, was to take on missions for the Demon Hunting Society. It was during his days as a slacker in the Demon Hunting Club that Liu Ming met Wang Zuking. He didn't know much about her background in peacetime, only that she had once worked for the government. Later, after the Wuling Demon Hunting Club was established, the club's president recruited her from a special government department to serve as deputy director of the procurement department. As Liu Ming took on missions for the club and sold the monster materials and special items he'd harvested from the wild to the club's procurement department, he gradually became acquainted with her. Whether out of sympathy or some other motive, she treated him with great favor, often fetching him a 50% or even 10% premium over the market price for any special materials he harvested. His most powerful pet in later life, the level 3 C-rank snowy night storm ape, was acquired through her connections and bred, and evolved from a mature stage storm ape. She was a benefactor to him, a low-level beast tamer in his later life, and they had a close relationship. See you later, we are strangers. Liu Ming sighed like a heartbroken hipster. Then, with everyone confused behind him, he charged out like a cannonball, instantly blocking the giant anaconda that was already closing in on Wang Zuking. P.S. Here's a second update, this one extra for my number one little brother, Jizirang. Chapter 107 Starblade Crystal Light, the vicious creature's tail is cut off. Liu Ming smiled at the beautiful creature before him and said, "Little cutie, hurry up and go. I won't hit you." From a tamer's perspective, the starry night anaconda was indeed a mysterious, powerful, and beautiful creature. Furthermore, the anaconda didn't appear ferocious or violent, and anyone who attacked it was injured but not killed. It was hard to feel any resentment at first. But as Liu Ming had anticipated, the anaconda took his harmless words as a provocation. A flick of murderous intent flashed in its serpentine eyes, and its slow attack became incredibly swift. Its bloody maw spitted out a black crystal tongue, and with two black fangs as thick as his arms, it pounced at Liu Ming. With a flick of his left hand, as if swatting a fly, Liu Ming unleashed several blasts of evil dragon magic, deflecting the giant snake's head. He then dodged the anaconda's terrifying attack with a sideways leap. The giant anaconda swung its head, shattering the terrifying impact and explosive force of the evil dragon spell like a rock. Then, undiminished in force, it bit the ground, where Liu Ming had stood, creating a crater half a man's height. Seeing this, Liu Ming marveled, as expected of a C-rank monster. However, the Crystal Knight anaconda's relentless attack left him no time to contemplate. As the anaconda's gusty maw bore down on him, Liu Ming flicked his gliding shoes, stepped on the crystals on the rock wall, and leaped into the air above the cave, once again dodging the anaconda's jaws, which felt like heavy artillery fire. Just as the anaconda was about to launch its third attack, Sumi, having regained her form, and Jizirang charged in, one behind the other. Sumi launched a powerful phantom claw at the anaconda's head, tearing through it. Jizirang, clad in a rock armor helmet, stood before Liu Ming like a giant, his murky yellow eyes fixed on the anaconda, which was madly pursuing and biting Sumi. Ultimately, the anaconda's speed couldn't keep up with Sumi, a flash of aurora, and it was ripped apart by a crisscross of massive claws. Hiss, hiss, hiss. The anaconda's roar suddenly intensified. Sumi's claws tore off a handful of scales from its bulletproof body. The anaconda bit Sumi even more frantically, but despite shattering several purple afterimages, it didn't even touch Sumi's body. Instead, Sumi's purple flame dragon tail lashed out twice at its head, singeing the scales. The futile attacks and injuries drove the giant anaconda to a frenzy. The calmness of a snake-like creature in its eyes shone with insanity, and a dark luster gleamed from its gaping maw. Seeing this, Liu Ming shouted, "Sumi, get out of the way. Jizzy wrong, Sandstorm Soul." Seeing the Sandstorm Soul's massive form blocking him, and Sumi's quick retreat, Liu Ming lunged backward. As he ran, he shouted anxiously to the cavalry rushing to support him, "Danger! Stay away. Fangan and Gu Yun, defend where you are." Then, with a speed so fast that none of the soldiers in front of Wang Zuking could react, he tackled her to the ground. By then, the black light from the crystal knight anaconda's mouth had thickened to the darkness of night, and a violent powerful energy wave enveloped the entire cave. With a boom, the black light from the giant anaconda's mouth finally erupted, with a resounding explosion like a heavy aerial bomb. Countless black blade-like energy blades and triangular star-shaped sharp energy fragments hurled themselves at the group at breakneck speed. The countless energy blades crackled like a boning knife through pork, scattering the many survivors in the cave, who had no time to dodge. The giant anaconda's attacks followed one after another amidst the whirlwind of energy blades. Liu Ming glimpsed the glint of the serpent's fangs as they struck. He quickly deployed the energy shield of his silver scale light armor, resisting several energy blades, before pulling Wang Zuking backward and rolling to avoid the fatal blow. The giant anaconda's next attack was blocked by the roaring Jizeli Rang and the sandstorm spirit. Sumi transformed into purple lightning and ripped several large pieces of bloody snake scales from the giant anaconda's head. After a few breaths, the energy storm finally subsided. Less than a quarter of Wang Zuking's group was still standing, and the rest, if not dead, were dying. Wang Zuking frantically tried to break free from Liu Ming, but found her arms clamped in place like iron pincers. She could only helplessly say, "I don't know who you are, but thank you for saving me. Can you please let me go? I need to go save my companions." Liu Ming, with a half smile, said, "Come on, Wang Zuking. You think you can save people with your mediocre healing skills?" He then summoned his guardian heroic spirit, Kemenwen, "Heal those who are still alive." "As you command, my guardian." As Wang Zuking stared in shock, Kemenwen, a mysterious and majestic figure resembling a legendary elven king, slowly emerged from the sudden green light in the air. How do you know my name? And how do you know I can heal?" Wang Zuking, who had initially mistaken the mysterious stranger for some legendary chivalrous young man, now suspected he had a different identity. Why else would he have so resolutely saved her from the terrifying monster's attack, and why did he know her name and my mysterious abilities? Liu Ming smiled and ignored her. Although he didn't know how she had managed to escape the Crystal Knight Anaconda's attack without his help in the future, saving someone who had done him a favor was a joyous and wonderful thing. At that moment, the handsome middle-aged heroic spirit's hands emanated a stream of tranquil green light, as brilliant as starlight. As it fell upon the wounded, their injuries healed at a visible rate. With Sumi and Jizeli Rang's sandstorm spirit attacking from all sides, they were gradually gaining the upper hand in the battle against the Crystal Knight Anaconda. Liu Ming released Wang Zuking's arm and said calmly, "Wang Zuking, if you don't want to die, stay away. If the monster attacks you, I won't save you." With that, he erupted in crimson molten lava, and, like a crimson flame, charged at the Crystal Knight Anaconda with his blade. Within a few breaths, his molten encrusted sword struck the anaconda's neck, where Jizeli Rang had entangled it. A flash of black light, as intense as the night, flashed across the Jufeng blade. The tough snake scales that had paralyzed everyone were instantly ripped apart by the blade, and dark red blood oozed from the wound. The giant anaconda, still wrapped its dozens-meter-long body around Jizeli Rang, suddenly felt pain, and hissed with fury, turning to bite Liu Ming. After Liu Ming's successful strike, he didn't withdraw before the snake's jaws reached him. Instead, he gripped the hilt tightly, and twisted it vigorously, widening the giant anaconda's initial cut into a massive wound the size of a bowl. As the snake's jaws struck Liu Ming, a purple figure suddenly appeared behind him. Its purple tail tightly wrapped around Liu Ming's waist, and it leaped past him like a flash of purple lightning, sending the giant anaconda's death bite eluding him once again. While the giant anaconda was distracted, Jizeli Rang had already unleashed his earth spears and rock spikes, piercing several sections of the snake's body. As the snake writhed in excruciating pain, its strength dissipating, Jizeli Rang spun beneath the ground, freeing himself from the giant anaconda's grip. After the giant anaconda lost its primary target, the dragon salamander, and shifted its attack to Liu Ming, Sumi, and the sandstorm spirit, Ji Zhenliang's massive figure emerged from the ground once again. Encased in rock armor, his bulk ballooned to the size of a minibus, pinning the already severely injured giant anaconda beneath him. Liu Ming, perched on Sumi's body, reappeared beside the temporarily immobilized giant anaconda. He raised his sword and struck again, striking the massive bloody hole pierced by the earth spears and rock spikes. With one incredibly ferocious blow, he slashed a small portion of the crystal knight giant anaconda's seemingly indestructible body. Then, he drew his sword and retreated, not attacking again. Under such heavy damage, the anaconda's body thrashed wildly, sending shattered rocks scattering from the ground beneath it. Even Ji Zhenliang's massive form showed signs of being unable to contain the fury. Just as Liu Ming braced himself for the anaconda's next furious counterattack, the anaconda's action stunned him. The anaconda, the half of its body Liu Ming had chopped off, repeatedly struggled against Ji Zhenliang's massive claws, and then, like a gecko, it suddenly broke free. Its severed tail, free of Ji Zhenliang's grasp, swiftly slithered out of the cave, its tens of meter long, black crystal-like body slithering. P.S. Chapter 1 is here. Fengsha has been a bit busy these days, so updates have been a bit erratic. Please forgive the delay, but I'll definitely update. Chapter 108. Encountering the cave people, Guzi Guzi. Liu Ming looked at the dragon salamander, its size as large as his own, gripping the severed snake's tail with two claws. He cursed with a somewhat speechless smile. Ji Zhenliang, did you meet your relatives? Why are you so cowardly? As a genuine C-level creature, he fled after a single fight against a D-level creature. This was quite similar to how Ji Zhenliang, still a pre-evolved earth demon salamander, had encountered him. He abducted Jeshingnan and fled despite being a much higher power level than him. By then, a small number of those seriously injured by the Crystal Knight Anaconda's attack had been rescued by Kamengwen, reducing the casualty rate from 3/4 to 1/2. The rest had already perished under the Crystal Knight Anaconda's innate ability, the Starblade Crystal Storm. Fortunately, Ma Jun and his group had taken refuge in the cavernous passage, and with Fangen and Gu Yun, two super tanks, providing the front line, they were safe. Seeing the heavy casualties among her subordinates, Wang Zuking's face was filled with sorrow, her delicate eyebrows furrowed together, and she looked deeply dejected. But she forced herself to pull herself together, walked over to Liu Ming, and extended her hand to express her gratitude. "Hello, sir," she said. "Thank you for saving my life. If it weren't for your help, I don't know how many of us would have survived." Liu Ming remained calm. He took out his demon hunting device and collected the giant anaconda's tail before giving her a light handshake. "You're welcome," he replied. "Why are you at the entrance?" Wang Zuking's face changed drastically. Entrance? The dozen or so survivors behind her also had uncertain expressions. Seeing their expressions, Liu Ming guessed what had happened. Wang Zuking was probably part of the military and political forces, one of the first to enter the secret realm. Yet, she was not far from the entrance. Besides having already reaped valuable rewards and preparing to leave, she could only have gotten lost, and judging by their expressions, it was undoubtedly the latter. Liu Ming chuckled, shook his head, and prepared to lead his men on. "Sir, could you please take us with you?" Wang Zuking seemed a little embarrassed at first, but when she saw Liu Ming walking away, she finally called out anxiously. Liu Ming shook his head decisively. "He saved your life to keep his conscience clear. Taking you with him? What a joke. If any valuable items were discovered, whose property would belong to them? And bringing the military and government along with him was just a waste of time." He had heard of the military and government's domineering behavior of getting involved in any good thing. "Let's go our separate ways. See you again." With that, Liu Ming led the others out of the cave at a brisk pace, leaving them stunned. Wang Zuking was even more incredulous. What motive did this man have in saving her? If he had other motives, why didn't he take her with him to achieve his goal after saving her? Instead, he fled like a rocket, as if he feared she would be a burden. However, considering his terrifying, inhuman strength, almost comparable to Lieutenant Colonel KO, she was likely a burden to him. At that moment, Wang Zuking's beautiful face, already tinged with sorrow over the deaths of so many of her subordinates, pursed her cherry lips slightly, her arched brows furrowed in a look of deep remorse. Meanwhile, Liu Ming had already led his men out of the cave, heading into the caverns ahead. He didn't care about the thoughts of Wang Zuking, who had already been forgotten. As long as Wang Zuking hadn't died before his eyes, he could live with a clear conscience. After all, it was just a matter of acquaintance in the future, a matter of care and concern. For now, they didn't know each other, and had no prior contact. Saving her life from a C-rank monster was the best he could do. Every so often, Liu Ming would pull out his mechanical watch to check the time. They'd been walking through the caverns for half an hour, finding nothing except a few scattered cave monsters. They finally emerged from the damp passageway, and arrived at another vast cavern. As Liu Ming stepped through the cavern, several stone arrows slanted towards him. Liu Ming's right fingers flashed a crimson light, and several stone arrows disintegrated into a cloud of shattered stone. He then looked in the direction from which the stone arrows came. He saw several sneaky small creatures hiding behind several large blocks of raw crystal ore, stalking him furtively. The rattan bows and arrows they held were clearly their weapons of attack. Unfortunately, such crude arrows were far inferior to even the powerful bows and crossbows of the human era of cold weapons, let alone the possibility of injuring him. Cavern people. Liu Ming rushed directly towards the crystal rocks, where the small creatures were hiding. His python-like crimson hands instantly bound the few who still tried to escape. Amidst the small creatures' terrified cries of gulps, Liu Ming observed them. They were only about 1 meter tall, about the same size as the underage dwarf Garlin, but lacked Garlin's robust build and massive frame, instead being rather slender. Thick, long grey hair flowed behind them like a grey cloak. Their faces resembled those of humans, but their eyes were small, almost as small as beans, giving them a playful, almost comical appearance. This was likely due to their living in the dim caves, which had degraded their vision. Even though they were tightly bound, they held their rattan bows tightly, as if they were very precious. Around their waists hung a quiver woven from fern roots, containing dozens of stone arrows. One of the cave dwellers seemed to be of the highest status, wearing clothing made of grayish-yellow animal hide. The other cave dwellers, instead of animal hides, which seemed rare for them, wore dresses made of cave-dwelling plants, resembling miniature savages. Through telepathy, Liu Ming also understood the meaning of the guzzle sounds. They probably carried human insults like scum, bastard, and son of a bitch. Interesting. Then I'll call you Goozy. Alright, Goozy. Now tell me, why you're here to attack me? Liu Ming demanded menacingly, his right hand suddenly extended, suspending the 6 crypt dwellers in midair. If they didn't tell the truth, they'd bang their heads against the ground, a scene of planting onions in dry land. This place clearly wasn't a crypt dwelling. Their presence in such large numbers must have a different reason. Goozy. 6 crypt dwellers, their small playful eyes lashing out at Liu Ming, angrily cursed him. They offered no valuable information other than threatening to let go, lest the crypt army bring him trouble. It wasn't until Liu Ming, with the cunning Rang Zhang Danning swallowing them whole without chewing, and then dangling them directly above the dragon salamanders more, that the terrified crypt dwellers finally revealed the truth under duress. According to them, they were part of a group of Spelunky hunting teams that had come from the Spelunky settlement 40,000 steps, 15 kilometers, away in search of the Amethyst Palace, under the orders of their tribe's leader. When Liu Ming asked them what the Amethyst Palace was, they babbled for a long time, unable to articulate a single word. Under Liu Ming's intimidation, they repeatedly insisted that all information about the Amethyst Palace lay with their tribe's leader and several elders. They knew only that the Amethyst Palace held the key to their Spelunky people's rise. With it, they could defeat the countless powerful monsters of the Crystal Caves and ascend to the top of the food chain. They would no longer be the pitiful spelunkers, cowering in their settlements, terrified even of going out hunting. These were the Spelunky people's original words, translated by Liu Ming through his telepathic communication skills. This sparked a deep interest in the Amethyst Palace they spoke of. P.S. Here's chapter 1. The wind and sand issues are now resolved, and I've resumed regular updates. I'll give you 4 updates today to catch up. Thanks to 998, Ice Angel Zhang, Jzislav, Zinmengayan, Invincible King G, Tanmo, Zimeng Sixiang DDR, and Rainy Daily for their tips and support. Dragon Breeder has been dead for a few days now. It's been dead. Please recommend, tip, and support me. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 109 Blood Ganoderma Mushroom, Shenim tastes poison. The origins of the secret realms remained a mystery until later generations. Perhaps even the highest echelons of humanity, the most powerful, and the most advanced researchers had already grasped them, but kept them hidden from the general public. However, some of the secret realms' characteristics were widely known. One of their most significant features was that they resembled a vast mechanical construct. Each secret realm possessed its own controlling core, the secret realm energy core. Any creature infused with this core could unleash incredible abilities within the secret realm, including the ability to achieve near instantaneous teleportation and control spatial pathways to the real world. In other words, once fused with the secret realm energy core, the secret realm's potential could be fully exploited. Therefore, the information Liu Ming had obtained from the cave dwellers led him to believe that the Amethyst Palace they spoke of was most likely related to the legendary secret realm energy core. While thousands of secret realms had been explored by later generations, only a few had actually found and successfully integrated the secret realm energy core. Have you uncovered any valuable clues? Liu Ming asked using his telepathic abilities. His grip on the cave dwellers loosened, and he lowered the six, already terrified, closer to the dragon's maw. This time, the six cave dwellers, whom Liu Ming dubbed Guzi 1 to 6, offered no resistance, instead revealing their greatest discovery of the journey. It was a cavernous area of wild edible plants. They claimed it contained enough delicious food to sustain their entire cave dweller community for nearly 6 months. Based on their mid-air descriptions, Liu Ming determined they were the unique foods he had tasted in his later life: blood dew Ganoderma and meat mushroom, two edible plants found only in the crystal cave. Rich in nutritional value, they were considered extremely rare. In later times, the Wuling Safe Zone would create a costly magical dish called Crimson Moonlight, made with these two special ingredients. Furthermore, according to the Guzguz, their tribe of spelunkers is one of the largest in the crystal caverns. The Stonaclaw tribe boasts 600 spelunkers. Assuming 5 to 8 spelunkers per cave, that's a massive tribe of 3 to 4,000. This food supply is enough for their entire tribe for nearly 6 months. Even if humans eat twice as much as these smaller individuals, it's still enough for their 1,000+ followers to eat for a year. In the apocalypse, no one wants more food than plenty, and with this vast supply of food, their journey into the secret realm wasn't in vain. The unassuming name of the Stonaclaw tribe comes from the Stonaclaw, a guardian monster of Guzguz's tribe. The Stonaclaw's most elite warriors fight on horseback. As for Guzguz 1 to 6, spelunkers armed with simple bows and stone knives, they are merely hunters in the tribe's hunting teams, tasked with hunting for meat and food. Their status is only slightly higher than that of ordinary spelunkers, and they can't be considered spelunker warriors. The leader of this hunting group, the father of the hide-clad crypt dweller, was a true Stonaclaw warrior. They claimed that a single Stonaclaw warrior, wielding crystal weapons, clad in crystal armor, and accompanied by a Stonaclaw warbeast, could simultaneously take on a dozen of their fellow crypt dweller hunters. Finally, Liu Ming, having driven the crypt dwellers nearly mad, finally lowered them from mid-air. Their first instinct upon landing wasn't to flee, but to crumble to the ground in a state of near paralysis from the onset of terror. Once they regained their feet, the group, led by 6 crypt dwellers bound with pliable ferns Liu Ming had picked, headed towards the caverns, where crystal dew moss and meat mushrooms grew. The crypt dwellers were adept at navigating the subterranean landscape, so Liu Ming wasn't worried about them losing their way, unless they harbored ulterior motives and intended to lead him to their lair for harm. However, Liu Ming didn't believe these terrified cave dwellers were considering such a scheme. To prevent them from harming him, he arranged for Guzguz 1, Gus Gus 6, and other creatures to take turns leading the way to prevent any potential misconceptions. However, Liu Ming's concerns were overblown. These terrified cave dwellers, unlike humans, were more inclined to scheme than to engage in scheming. Instead, they were well aware of their captivity and obediently led the group to a vast cavern nearly 2 hours away. This cavern was arguably the largest he had seen on his journey, towering over 10 meters and covering dozens of hectares. What struck Liu Ming most was the feeling of entering a vast sea of vegetation. Flowers of pale red blood dew moss and clusters of red, blue, and white flesh mushrooms grew everywhere. Like a human plantation, the cavern was filled with countless blood dew moss the size of human heads and flesh mushrooms the size of fists. The crystal dew moss had veins running through it, resembling blood vessels, creating a strange and eerie appearance. The flesh mushrooms resembled plump human hands, looking like incredibly poisonous palms, sending chills down your spine. But upon seeing this patch of blood dew mushrooms and flesh mushrooms, the several cave dwellers revealed expressions of immense excitement, like hungry ghosts horrified by the sight of food. Even the vine Liu Ming was holding stretched straight by the force of their charge. Seeing this, Liu Ming simply let go, and the cave dwellers rushed towards the blood dew mushrooms like pigs being slaughtered. Each one plucked a flower, clutching it in their hands, and devouring it frantically, their mouths filled with blood-red juices. It was a terrifying sight. Seeing this, Liu Huchuan grumbled, "Damn, aren't these guys afraid of being poisoned? Eating something so bizarre?" Han Piaoxu, with a look of nausea and disgust, said, "Are they committing suicide by poisoning?" Liu Ming, "What did you say to them just now? They brought us here. Suicide? Haha, these are good things." Liu Ming chuckled. A delicious ingredient that fetched a high price in later times was actually considered poison. He also walked towards the blood dew Ganoderma, plucking a flower covered in veins like blood vessels, biting through the skin, and devouring it with relish. "Boss, stop eating. You don't know what it is, and you can't test the poison yourself like Shenning." Liu Huchua nervously rushed over to grab the strange blood dew Ganoderma from Liu Ming's hand. But his skills were no match for Liu Ming. He dodged Liu Huchuan's advance and stuffed the blood dew Ganoderma directly into Liu Huchuan's mouth. A look of horror filled Liu Huchuan's face, as if he were avoiding a snake or scorpion, and he was about to spit out the blood dew Ganoderma, but then he uttered something that surprised everyone else. "Holy shit, what the hell is this? It's quite delicious." Liu Ming smiled and said to the people behind him, "Eat it. It's not poisonous. It's good stuff and very nutritious." With the exception of Han Piaoxu, who looked disgusted and refused to eat, the others, already a little hungry from the journey, ate heartily. Even Ji Zirong and Sumi. "How come it tastes a bit sweet?" "Yeah, it tastes like fruits and vegetables with a hint of meat." "Boss, how could you eat this poisonous mushroom?" "Boss, stop eating it. Such brightly colored mushrooms must be poisonous." But in the end, all the voices changed to, "How come this mushroom is so delicious?" PS. Here's a second update. This one is extra thanks to the tips and support from my brothers Zin Mengayan, Wipe, and Rang Chang Menghu. Thanks to my brothers 99.8, Zin Mengayan, Laoj Wildru, and Wudaheos Wazalohahi for their tips and support. The recommendations are completely gone. 2 more updates soon. Brothers, let me see your support. Please recommend, please tip, please support. Chapter 110, Rough Stone Deposits, Colorful Firefly Butterflies. After a lavish feast, even Han Piaoxu devoured the food and water Liu Ming had carried with him on his magical camera, burping contentedly. Liu Ming pulled out his magical camera and began snapping photos of the rare ingredients scattered across the ground. But a somewhat embarrassing moment occurred. None of the plants growing in the soil had been captured in the magical camera. Instead, the magical camera had captured some dirt and dead branches and leaves. Liu Ming frowned, plucked a blood dew moss, and pressed the shutter again. This time, it was captured. "Guess I have to pick it," Liu Ming thought to himself. He then led the others in preparing to harvest all the blood dew moss and meat mushrooms. However, trying to collect thousands of blood dew moss and meat mushrooms with just a few people was an enormous undertaking, even with the nimble assistance of Liu Ming's 6 newly recruited crypt dwellers. Guzguz. Of course, they only began to work under the threat of Liu Ming's ultimate blade. Even so, harvesting all the crops across dozens of hectares would take more than a day or two. Finally, frustrated and dissatisfied with the time required, Liu Ming remembered his guardian spirit. Kemenwen, is there any way to pick these plants? Liu Ming asked hopefully. It's easy, Guardian. Kemenwen smiled faintly and flew around the crops like a gardener, casting large swaths of green light from his hands. The blood dew moss and meat mushrooms touched by the green light fell like autumn leaves, and soon the entire cave floor was covered with a blanket of blood dew moss and meat mushrooms. Liu Ming once again picked up his magical camera and continuously pressed the shutter button on these rare invaluable ingredients that would later fetch a fortune. As everyone stared in amazement, the entire cave's blood dew moss and meat mushrooms vanished. As if witnessing a miracle, the 6 little Guzgus crouched before Liu Ming, refusing to move. They were even more submissive than they had been when threatened. Liu Ming kicked his new recruits several times on the buttocks, urging them to hurry up, and set off for the next destination. After the cavemen trembled and scrambled to their feet, Liu Ming removed the plant branches that bound them. The Guzgus no longer needed these restraints. Liu Ming sensed that these cavemen had become fanatical after what they had just witnessed, as if they had taken the magic camera's capabilities as a miracle. Their address indicated that they no longer called Liu Ming Guzgus, a veiled insult in the caveman language, but Karen, a term for spirits, gods, and the supreme being. Guzi, tell me, do you know where I can find this kind of stone? Although Liu Ming was satisfied with his current harvest and had met his expectations, he still took out his own rough stone and asked his 6 subordinates, full of the fighting spirit and the spirit of striving for success. Crystal weapons, Karen. This is the ore for making crystal weapons, said Guzi number 1, dressed in animal skins, and replied respectfully. Who knows where to find this? If you find it, I can give them 50 blood dew ganoderma and 100 meat mushrooms, Liu Ming said with a feigned generosity. Guzi number 1, 6's eyes suddenly lit up, and they all rushed to answer. Karen, there's a crystal vein nearby. Yes, Karen, our tribe also has crystal deposits, but the nearest one is in the hands of the Liu tribe. Liu tribe? While Liu Ming wasn't particularly concerned about the combat prowess of these feeble vault dwellers, he nonetheless decided to assess the potential owner of the ore deposit, lest he end up getting into trouble instead of the ore. Can the fiery cave tribe defeat the crystal knight anaconda? He inquired, describing the anaconda he had just encountered. Callan, that's the black evil serpent god. Guz number 2 was horrified by Liu Ming's description. Callan, whether it's the fiery cave tribe or our stone claw tribe, it will take the combined strength of our tribe to withstand the black evil serpent god's rampage and depredations. Guz number 1 also looked uneasy, as if the crystal knight anaconda were some formidable demon. Liu Ming was speechless upon hearing this, his assessment of the vault dweller's combat prowess dropping several notches. A single crystal knight anaconda could scare you half to death. You're truly unworthy of your title as the Crystal Cave's only intelligent race. What a pathetic fate. With this in mind, Liu Ming no longer cared much about the so-called Liu tribe and simply ordered, take me to the crystal mines. This time, the cave dwellers were far more attentive than they had been before, leading them to a cave teeming with blood dew ganoderma and meat mushrooms. Their small eyes lit up as they led the way, their playful faces beaming with joy, as if guiding Liu Ming was a great honor. Along the way, they encountered no threats on the scale of the crystal knight anaconda, but rather ordinary monsters. While legendary predators to the cave dwellers, they were mere mortal prey to Sumaji Zirang. Suddenly, a Milston-sized spider with a human face on its back leaped out, scaring the 6 cautious cave dwellers half to death. This top-tier level monster, known to the cave dwellers as the venomous face giant spider, was pinned to the ground before Liu Ming and his dragon pet could react. Fangan shot a silver-white short spear through the human face on its back, pinning it to the ground, its pale green fluids and blood spilling all over the ground. But just as death was imminent, Guz number 5 suddenly erupted, its pincer-like fangs biting down on the terrified and desperate burrower. Just as the burrower's head was about to be chopped off, Liu Ming suddenly appeared, raised his right foot, and slammed it down, crushing the giant venomous spider to pieces. The burrower, seemingly doomed, wept tears of joy at his resurgence and rushed to Liu Ming, clinging to his thighs. He only let go after Liu Ming had thrown him violently. They then encountered several bizarre cave-dwelling monsters, dark green cave dart frogs, spiky thorn pangolins, burrow salamanders, distant relatives of the chicken thief wrong, and cave bears covered in dark yellow fur. After more than an hour's journey, the group finally approached the crystal deposits the Gus had spoken of. But within a cavernous passage thousands of steps from the deposit, Liu Ming encountered an extremely rare and mysterious creature described in later biographies. "What a beautiful creature!" exclaimed Han Piaoxu. Everyone nodded in agreement. "Phantom firefly," Liu Ming muttered to himself, calling out the creature's later scientific name. It resembled a light source, constantly emitting a multicolored glow. Every flap of its massive wings sent countless specks of light scattering to the ground. Its body was half the height of a man, but its wingspan stretched 2 or 3 meters, like a mysterious spirit hidden within a pair of multicolored wings. 2 small antennae on its forehead dangled from its head like tiny lanterns of multicolored light. Its body was more human-like than insect-like. What a magical place. Even creatures like the phantom firefly, which almost only exist in legends, can be encountered here. Liu Ming's eyes gleamed with a blazing gaze. This creature is the kind that drives animal trainers crazy. P.S. Here's the third update. This update is thanks to Zinmengayan, 998, Juha, Tanemo, Zeshamawang, Jinteluz Guoda, and Bookfriend 2017070601112865. I still remember Jingsheng and I, the brothers who came from Taiwan back then, for their generous donations. Chapter 111, Fierce Cave Warrior, Crystal Mushroom, Illusionary Firefly, a mysterious creature, a subspecies of firefly. Level, unknown. Potential, 4th order transcendent SSS. Nature, passionate about spreading light and darkness. Description, illusionary fireflies possess the power to control space. Through the interplay of light and shadow, they can transport humans to another illusory dimension, then leap from that illusory dimension back into reality. This is how later generations of illustrated encyclopedias describe the illusionary firefly. This mysterious creature possesses modest offensive power, yet possesses formidable abilities. They are also known as the space firefly. Their miraculous ability, akin to space jumping, allows them to avoid most attacks and grants them terrifying teleportation speed. Furthermore, their flight speed is exceptionally fast, with distances measured in kilometers between a single flap of their wings. This creature is particularly valuable for its spatial abilities. In later times, a beastmaster possessing a fully evolved illusionary firefly could, with its spatial abilities, achieve the nearly mythical feat of traveling from the equator to the North Pole. Even legendary saints would struggle to match the reach of this 5th order beastmaster. Liu Ming's heart surged with excitement at the sight of the beautiful creature before him. If he could tame it, even if he couldn't advance to legendary status, cultivating it to the 4th SSS level would grant him extreme speed, unmatched even by many legendary saints, who weren't particularly adept at speed. Liu Ming secretly instructed Sumi to use shadow to capture the firefly, while he himself, somewhat nervously, tiptoed towards the illusionary firefly. Just as Sumi's purple shadow suddenly appeared beside the firefly and pounced upon it, the firefly, still shedding its fluorescent light, flapped its dazzling wings as if startled, and vanished into the cave in a flash of light and shadow, as if vanishing into thin air. Sumi's claws slammed into the rock wall, but she used the momentum to leap back to Liu Ming's side. Liu Ming sighed in disappointment, and continued his journey towards the raw stone deposit. As expected, if taming creatures like the illusionary firefly was so easy, the entire Wuling city safe zone wouldn't be so sparsely populated in later generations. Just as Liu Ming, feeling a mixture of regret and anger, was about to enter the cave where Gus claimed to have hidden the ore vein, a strange creature half the height of a man burst out. Its body was a fiery crimson, its main body covered in what looked like red armor, with dark red stripes. It resembled a tiger, but its size was only half that of a full-grown tiger, slightly smaller than an adult female tiger. Its sharp fangs and claws demonstrated that its threat wasn't determined by size. On its back sat several cave dwellers who resembled the guzguz, but compared to the grass skirts and animal skins of the guzguz, these cave dwellers looked far more imposing. They wore crystal armor and wielded crystal spears that were more than half their height. The spears were pointed directly at Liu Ming and the others, and they uttered the same curse, guzguz. Liu Ming's 6 vault dwellers trembled with fear at the sight of the 7 or 8 vault dweller knights bursting forth. They exclaimed in terror, "Karen, fiery vault warriors. They are brutal fiery vault warriors. That's their battle pet, the fiery armor, who feasts on human flesh." Liu Ming gazed with interest at the fiery vault warriors, or more accurately, at their warbeast mounts. Fiery armor, armored creature, armored beast subspecies. Power level, level 1F potential, level 1C. What fiery armor? Isn't this the crystal armored fiery tiger, a pet creature from the Wuling City safe zone in later times? While this little creature wasn't particularly powerful, its appearance was quite intriguing, often kept as a pet by evolvers. While Liu Ming was still observing them, 7 or 8 fiery armor tiger knights had already spurred their mounts, spears drawn, charging straight at him. Their attacks frightened the 6 cave dwellers into fleeing, tumbling, and scrambling to hide behind Liu Ming. But just as their spears were about to pierce him, Zhenirang's thick tail swept them to the ground, sending them tumbling like a string of candied haws. When Liu Ming saw the armor and spears of the 8 fiery cave warriors up close, a look of astonishment crossed his eyes. Their armor and spears were truly forged from raw stone, just as the guzguz had claimed. And not just partially inlaid with raw stone, as Liu Ming had imagined, but entirely made of raw stone. Liu Ming's breathing quickened, his gaze burning even more intensely than when he had just seen the illusionary firefly. After all, the illusionary firefly's attack power wasn't particularly strong, and cultivating it to its full potential would take an unknown amount of time. But the raw stone before him was truly a treasure that could accelerate his yuan qi cultivation. Even the raw stones in the armor and spears of these Liku warriors weighed several times more than the raw stones he had acquired through sacrifices over the past few days. With an impatient wave of his scollard hand, Liu Ming gripped the 8 Liku warriors tightly, as if afraid to lose the treasure he had secured. Seeing their master captured, the 8 Liku warriors, each with a ferocious expression, rushed forward, only to be swiped back by Zhenirang's massive tail. After being swiped back 3 or 4 times, the Liku warriors finally realized the vast difference in strength between them and the giant before them, and dared not charge again, instead whimpering around their master. But Liu Ming ignored the protective mounts and swiftly stripped the 8 Liku warriors to pieces. He grasped a looted Liku warrior spear, his 6th dimensional sense clearly sensing the surging primordial energy within it, and his heart surged with excitement. He stored the remaining 8 sets of raw stone armor and 7 raw stone spears in his magical album. "Let's go." Liu Ming waved his spear, pointing at the cave, and spoke to his men with high spirits. "Boss, what's this?" Ma Jun's face was filled with disbelief. He had obtained raw stones through sacrifice before, and naturally recognized this kind of magical treasure. But even the piece he had obtained, half the size of a fist, had filled him with ecstasy. Seeing so many now left him in disbelief. Raw stones. As the group entered the cave, they saw, as expected, crystal-like pieces of raw stones growing on the rock wall. Although the entire cave was pitted and pitted, and it was obvious that much of the raw stones had been mined out, it was obvious that nearly a quarter of the raw stone deposits remained untapped. The reason these Liku warriors were here was likely to guard this raw stone deposit, which was of great value to the cave dwellers. As Liu Ming approached a piece of raw stone, preparing to pry it from the rock wall with his sharp blade, he discovered that some of the untapped raw stone deposits were actually covered in crystal-like mushrooms. Crystal mushroom. Liu Ming's eyes lit up, and he dashed over in a few steps. He plucked a crystal mushroom, about half the size of his fist, wiped it clean, and popped it into his mouth. The outer skin of the crystal mushroom resembled a nut, and was quite hard, but once the tough outer layer was broken, streams of sweet, clear liquid flowed down his mouth, and into his throat. As the liquid flowed down his throat, and into his stomach, a refreshing surge of energy instantly swept through Liu Ming's body. The fatigue he had accumulated from the journey vanished under the rush of the clear stream, and his vital energy became as if cleansed, becoming crystal clear and bright. His flow became much easier, and the obscurity and obstacles he had experienced after his vital energy breakthrough vanished. The cave was not very large, about the same size as the one where he had encountered the crystal knight anaconda. Liu Ming summoned the heroic spirit Cayman again, and swiftly cleared the entire cave of crystal mushrooms. Crystal mushrooms, precious plants, they possess a variety of miraculous properties, such as cleansing vital energy, relieving fatigue, restoring strength, and eliminating toxins. This is a brief description of crystal mushrooms, a companion plant that only grows near ore stone deposits, according to later pharmacology. PS. This is the 4th update from yesterday. This update is a bonus update thanks to the donations from my brothers Jingsheng, 99.8, Gentleman of the Gentleman's Tribe, Ice Archangel, How Lonely the Invincible Is, Hehe, Stepping on Small Fish in the Suburbs, Looking Up and Seeing Next Year, Ziwei Sword Boy I, Shenzhen Ming, and Sui Yefei. Chapter 112, Cave Dwarfs, Military Powerhouses. In later generations, demon hunters operating in the wild must be equipped with items that can quickly replenish physical strength in emergencies, and crystal mushrooms are one of the most advanced of these items. They not only replenish physical strength, but also restore depleted mental energy. Their cleansing effect, in particular, delights key practitioners. While this effect may not sound surprising, experiencing it firsthand reveals its extraordinary and miraculous nature. The quality and purity of ki, after cleansing significantly increase, especially during the initial stages of cleansing. If Liu Ming were to begin cultivating ki now, his progress would be at least 1/3 faster than normal. With the aid of primordial stones, the speed would be several times faster. Given Liu Ming's financial resources as a 3rd level beast tamer in his later life, he would be fortunate to be able to use primordial stones to cultivate ki regularly. He had only used precious items like these with the power of cleansing ki a handful of times in the past 10 years, so he had never seen so many at once. His only energy replenishing supplies during his time in the restricted wilderness were the most common and inexpensive super protein muscle decomposing injections. After collecting nearly 1,000 crystal mushrooms, Liu Ming looked contentedly at the remaining rough stones. As long as he could successfully collect them all, even if he had to leave the secret realm immediately, he would consider this expedition a complete success. Liu Ming distributed another crystal mushroom to each person, and with Marjan and the others, who had instantly regained their spirits, he began to chip away at the rock wall with his weapons, unearthing pieces of rough stone that shone with an incomparably beautiful aura. Almost everyone knew the value of these deep crystal-like minerals, and the work was incredibly invigorating. Ji Zhenrong, who controlled the power of earth and rock, was particularly invigorated. Each sweep of his giant tail cracked the rock wall, and the slightly loosened rough stone was snatched away by his earth-like gravity field. Within an hour, the rough stone excavated by the group had piled up into a mountain as tall as a man. When they tired, they nibbled on a crystal mushroom, their energy seemingly boundless. As they worked furiously, a rustling sound of footsteps reached the distant cavernous passage outside the cavern. Meow. Sumi was the first to notice the movement, and called out in alarm. Liu Ming quickly raised his right hand to the crowd, who all looked at Sumi after hearing the cat's meow. He then slowly pressed his palm down, signaling them to stop. He quickly took a magical photo of the pile of raw rocks, then hid behind the rock face with his group and a dozen or so cave dwellers, awaiting the arrival of their uninvited guests. Several short figures entered the cavern first. Though small, they were still taller than the cave dwellers, who were only a meter tall. Cave-dwelling dwarves. Liu Ming's eyes flickered with surprise as he observed the newcomers. They were clearly dwarves who bore a passing resemblance to the dwarf Gorin, but their stocky builds and heights of just 1.34 meters clearly indicated they were adults. Carrying pickaxes and shovels, and wearing grey helmets resembling hard hats, they entered one after another, looking like serious miners. As the dwarves entered the cavern, their faces lit with excitement as they gazed at the small pile of raw rocks that Liu Ming hadn't yet collected. As they excitedly lunged for the rough stones, several towering figures behind them firmly restrained them. They were a group of sturdy men in camouflaged combat uniforms. Captain Song, wow. So many rough stones. A young man holding the dwarf excitedly said to the short-haired man in their lead. The man known as Captain Song frowned, gestured, and suddenly drew his submachine gun, leading his men into the cave, pointing their rifles directly in the direction of Liu Ming and his men's hiding. Seeing the men draw their guns, Liu Ming, without a word, unleashed several blasts of miniaturized evil dragon spell power, striking several of the men's guns, cracking their knuckles, and sending their submachine guns flying. This was because he didn't want to kill them, otherwise, he wouldn't have simply used the simplified evil dragon spell power to dislodge their firearms. Who are you? How dare you hurt us? A camouflaged man whose submachine gun had been knocked away shouted angrily. Before Liu Ming could say anything, Liu Huchuan retorted, "Who the hell are you? You're the first to complain when you want to draw your guns and hurt someone. We're the Wuling Military Region Garrison, ordered to explore the secret realm. What are you doing here so stealthily?" Another soldier wearing night vision goggles asked rudely. Seeing the eagerness and greed in the eyes of the people before him as they looked at the raw stone, Liu Ming knew that this matter would not end peacefully. He immediately made it clear, "We have nothing to do with you here. We discovered this place first, and we dug out the raw stone. Get out of here. Brother, you're so arrogant. We were the first to enter the secret realm, and we have checkpoints outside. You're entering illegally. We won't hold you accountable for your illegal entry, but the valuable materials you've explored must be handed over to the military and political authorities." The leading soldier, with a crew cut, spoke with a firm face, his tone as unshakable as Liu Ming's. As he finished speaking, a group of spotted, menacing grey-black figures slowly emerged from the darkness of the cavernous passage behind him. Even before they approached Liu Ming, he could smell the stench of their saliva. "Magic rainbow highness? Is that what you're relying on to plunder?" Liu Ming asked, a half-smile etched in his eyes as he looked at the dozen or so ferocious-looking beasts, their fangs bared. A group of Frankliners, along with a dozen armed combatants, were trying to steal from him? Foolish or naive? The crewman with the bus cut glanced at him provocatively, shook his head, and softly called out, "Steel Fist." Following his call, a massive beast, barely smaller than Zerong, slowly emerged from the darkness. "Sword Lion?" Liu Ming's expression was a touch of surprise. It was a massive golden beast, resembling a lion, yet several times larger. Four thick, razor-sharp fangs jutted from its lips like swords, and its mane swayed in the wind, giving it a ferocious, powerful, and intimidating presence. The person before him was most likely a beast tamer, not a low-level one, but at least a mid-level master tamer. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to control so many pets. Unless he had evolved to sea level, Liu Ming's perceptive abilities clearly indicated he was only at the peak of E level. However, for someone at the peak of E level to be able to control this sword lion, which had clearly evolved to D level, he was a man of considerable talent. If he hadn't died in the apocalypse, he would have made a name for himself in the afterlife. Liu Ming pondered for a moment, then, considering how he'd been addressed as Captain Song, he slowly said, "Song King Q, I advise you to be tactful and get your men out of here." The buzz-cut man standing before the sword lion, glaring at Liu Ming with a defiant look, a flicker of surprise in his eyes. He asked, "Who are you?" Song King Q was certain he'd never seen the man before him, but how could he call out his name? A faint smile played on Liu Ming's lips, as he found himself enjoying the astonishment on the faces of these powerful figures whose names he had spoken. He curled his finger, pointing at the sword lion, which was hissing at him. Zerong's massive body, like a man-eating monster emerging from the earth, pounced on the sword lion and its master, Song King Qiu, pinning them down. His massive claws rubbed Song King Qiu's head twice, but he was fortunately an evolved being. A normal person would have suffered a severe concussion from a claw weighing over 100 kilograms. The sandstorm spirit suddenly appeared, its body, even larger than the dragon salamander, sweeping across the area, not only completely blocking the continuous stream of flames from the guns, but also sweeping away all those who were fiercely firing. P.S. Here's the first update. Thanks to the 6 brothers in the gentleman's tribe, I want a name. I can only do this. Xinmen Guyan, Shenjin Ming, Tan Mo, and with deep love, I will grow old for their support. I feel completely drained, and I can't even muster the energy to write. I'm begging for support now. Please recommend, please reward, please support. Chapter 113. Cave Earthquake. Crystal Palace appears. Nearly 10 hours had passed since they entered the secret realm, yet within the cavernous passageway, strewn with natural crystals, Liu Ming and his group, clutching crystal mushrooms, remained in high spirits. In contrast, the nearly 50 soldiers led by Li Kangxi and Song Qingqiu appeared far more exhausted and battered. Although Liu Ming had avoided fatal blows in both encounters, and aside from a few of Song Qingqiu's rainbow hyenas being brutally attacked by Sumi, there were no casualties on either side. The military personnel were nearly unscathed. Li Kangxi's men were particularly affected. Despite blocking the icy energy currents, some of the chill still froze many of the ordinary warriors, barely even evolutionists, leaving their faces blue and shivering. They could barely hold their submachine guns steady, forcing them to sling them on their backs. After a brief conversation, Liu Ming decided to follow Li Kangxi to meet the Lieutenant Colonel Ko he mentioned. Liu Ming knew that this Lieutenant Colonel Ko was the later Wuling foremost figure, the elemental sky dragon Ko Xianlang. Although Liu Ming had ostensibly agreed to the meeting, in reality, he was deeply interested in the secret cave that Li Kangxi had mentioned Ko Xianlang exploring. The bountiful harvests of blood dew ganoderma, meat mushrooms, crystal mushrooms, and raw gemstones had instilled in Liu Ming a thirst for exploring secret caves. The secret realms he had explored in his later life weren't teeming with gold, they were barren lands devoid of any value. This was truly a secret realm, completely unexplored virgin land, a realm of immense value. However, he had already exploited the valuable information the Guzguz could provide, and the cave Li Kangxi had mentioned was a timely relief. After a brief consideration, he agreed to go. He had considered several possible scenarios, but as the saying goes, skill breeds courage. As long as the military and political authorities didn't completely sever ties with him and all the powerful forces united against him, he wouldn't consider it a risk. Moreover, the reward was proportional to the effort. Things like digging mushrooms and robbing the raw gemstones of the Liku tribe's cave dwellers weren't something he encountered often. Led by Li Kangxi, after a half-hour journey, the group finally reached the cave. Liu Ming got a close-up look at the man who would later become renowned throughout the city as the foremost of Wuling. He was a tall man with a stern face and sharp features. His calmness and unspoken authority easily convinced him. He wore the same camouflage uniform as any ordinary soldier, yet he stood out from the crowd, his distinction instantly apparent. Seeing his capable officer return, Ko Xianlang, who had been observing something, approached and asked with a hint of concern, "Kangxi, did you have a smooth journey?" But as he approached the group, he noticed that nearly all of his men were injured. Frowning, he asked, "What's going on?" Li Kangxi gave a wry smile, shook his head, and said, "Captain, don't ask now. I've brought the person you and the political commissar have been searching for." He then stepped aside to allow Liu Ming and his men to pass through. Then he raised his finger and pointed at Gu Yuan and continued, "This is the one, the ice-type awakening master you mentioned." But Ko Xianlang frowned even deeper when he heard this. With his insight ability of up to sea level, he could naturally see at a glance that Gu Yuan was only an F-level evolutionary professional close to E level, and the person he was looking for was not inferior to himself, and was definitely not the person in front of him. Although reality told him that Li Kangxi wasn't right, he was well aware of his trusted subordinate's style, and knew he wouldn't attack without a purpose. So, he asked, slightly puzzled, "Kangxi, how can you be sure it was him?" Li Kangxi also heard the doubt in Ko Xianlang's tone and quickly explained, "Captain, he used the same move you described, freezing 100 meters. If I hadn't blocked it, my men would have been frozen into ice sculptures." Even without Li Kangxi's explanation, Ko Xianlang remained skeptical, but after hearing his explanation, his disbelief only deepened. "You mean you blocked that move?" While his subordinate's strength ranked among the top 5 among all the evolvers on the military and political sides, if he could completely block the freezing effect of that move, leaving everyone unaffected, then either he had misjudged him, or the person before him wasn't the same person at all, but simply had similar abilities. Of course, he wouldn't be wrong. Furthermore, according to the scout who had seen the real person, that person's physical features didn't resemble him. That man was likely a slovenly bearded man, short of average height. The man before him, nearly 2 meters tall, half a hand taller than him, with a perfectly groomed hairstyle, looked nothing like the same person. Thinking of this, he sighed and said, "Kangxi, you've got the wrong guy." Seeing Li Kangxi's stunned expression, he continued, "How's the progress on the project I just had Song King Qiu lead to find the ore deposit those dwarves mentioned?" Just as Li Kangxi was about to respond with a look of resignation, the warriors still exploring the cave suddenly used their tools to chisel through the rock wall, creating a fist-sized hole. As the hole opened, the entire cave shook with a trembling vibration, as if the mountain had been shaken. Everyone, terrified, fled for the cave's entrance. Even those in Luzon, just a few kilometers away, felt the tremor. "Boss, is this an earthquake?" one of his men asked anxiously. Lu Zuan hesitated for a moment before decisively saying, "Let's go back to the passage." This same scene also occurred to the second lightning user who entered the secret realm and his 20 or 30 men. But just as everyone, believing it was a major earthquake, rushed to the spatial passage to avoid being trapped in the cave, the earth-shaking tremors suddenly vanished. The moment the tremors faded, Kao Xianlong remembered the rock wall his men had pierced through. After a moment's reflection, a flash of shock crossed his eyes, and he shouted, "Go back." When they returned to the cavern, where the tremors had been, they saw that the rock wall, which had only been pierced slightly, had been shattered by the earthquake into a massive opening, now completely blocked by rubble. Kao Xianlong casually threw a fireball, sending the rubble flying and creating a clear entrance. A dense, almost indispersible purple light permeated the cave in trance, like a glittering treasure chest, instantly conjuring a hidden world within. Kao Xianlong was the first to enter, followed by the others. A vast hundreds-meter-tall palace carved from purple crystal came into view. Upon seeing this scene, Guzguz number 2, a cave dweller following Liu Ming, fainted from excitement. The other 5 Guzguz and the newly captured Liku tribe were also filled with shock, running frantically towards the Amethyst Palace. Apparently, they had forgotten that the vines entangled them were still held by Liu Ming, like stray dogs who thought they had broken free, running for a long time, only to discover the reins were still in their owner's hands. It was only when the Liku warriors appeared that Kao Xianlong noticed Liu Ming and his companions, excluding Gu Yun. He turned to Li Kangxi and asked, "Who are they?" Just as Li Kangxi was about to respond, a sudden, earthquake-like event interrupted him. Ruzon, sweeping like a sandstorm, had already passed through the cave in trance. Standing before the purple temple, he let out a maniacal laugh. "I told you, the more dangerous the place, the greater the reward." As soon as he finished speaking, the lightning awakener, roaring like Thor, followed closely behind him, leading his men. More noisy footsteps followed from further away. PS. First update here. Brothers, a new month has begun. Please recommend, reward, and support me. Chapter 114 Crazy Gus, Fatal Ripple. Who are you? Kao Xianlong, his imposing form like a human wall, positioned himself in front of Lu Zuan, who was gazing excitedly at the Amethyst Palace. He demanded with a stern expression. This man, having immediately taken charge, had taken over the group that had first discovered the mysterious temple, turning his face, which had been slightly jubilant at the discovery, into a colder one. "It doesn't matter who I am," Lu Zuan casually replied to the obviously formidable Kao Xianlong, then fixed his gaze on the crypt dwellers, who were still attempting to reach the Amethyst Palace. Over a dozen crypt dwellers from the Stoner Claw and Fiery Cave tribes, previously at odds with each other, now united in a concerted effort to break free from Liu Ming's restraints and charge towards the Amethyst Palace, a legendary sight from their crypt dweller era. Fortunately, Liu Ming had tied up his Guzguz minions and the Fiery Cave warriors before setting off, otherwise his minions would have vanished without a trace. "Since these little creatures are so eager to get through, let them explore the way for us," Lu Zuan said to Liu Ming. As he spoke, the swirling sand in his palm suddenly flew out, transforming into a sharp blade made of gravel that slashed at the flexible vine in Liu Ming's hand. Liu Ming frowned and unleashed a blast of evil dragon magic, instantly blasting the flying sand blade into a cloud of dust. Although he didn't particularly care about the lives of the cave dwellers, he could use them as experimental subjects to test the potential dangers of the Crystal Palace. but if they were to attack without his consent, he naturally couldn't remain indifferent. Lu Xun chuckled, looked at Liu Ming meaningfully, and said, interesting. At this time, the Lightning Awakener also led his men in. He saw the Amethyst Palace not far away, and was also shocked and delighted. Anyone could see that this mysterious palace held huge benefits waiting to be explored, provided they could find it and survive to obtain it. The four groups of warriors faced each other, none wanting to be the first to try. After all, eating crabs wasn't just about enjoying the delicious meat, it also carried the risk of being crushed by the crab's massive claws. At that moment, a cacophony of noises erupted, a roaring clamor like a galloping army. Then, a ferocious statuesque grey-white beast, as tall as a man, leaped into the cave, carrying a somewhat aged-looking crypt dweller on its back. Following closely behind, a crypt dweller knight, also mounted on a grey-white beast, entered. The Guzzy, still struggling in Liu Ming's grasp, all displayed excited expressions, their voices clamoring in a crypt tongue unintelligible to anyone else. From their cries, Liu Ming identified the grey-white beasts as the stoner claws of his tribe, and the crypt dweller leading them as their leader. Stoner claws are the size of an adult lion, grey-white in color, with taut, robust muscles and the sharp angular features of a statue. Just as the stone claw leader, crystal spear in hand, gazed towards the Amethyst Palace with a flushed face, a massive blood-red bat with a wingspan of 3 or 4 meters flew in from the cave in trance. On its back sat a crypt warrior clad in crystal armor and wielding a crystal javelin. Then, everyone felt as if they had entered a bad cave, as giant bats, carrying crypt warriors on their backs, flew in one after another. But these uninvited guests weren't the only ones. Groups of fiery cave warriors, remarkably similar to the fiery cave warrior who had fallen into their clutches, also arrived one after another. Though their mounts differed, their expressions were strikingly similar, all gazing at the Amethyst Palace with flushed faces and ecstasy. Liu Ming was speechless as he watched the crypt warriors, who had suddenly filled the already spacious cave in trance to a point of near constraint. He hadn't expected these crypt warriors to intervene. Although Liu Ming hadn't been concerned about a dozen or so crypt warriors, he couldn't remain indifferent when their numbers swelled to the hundreds. After all, even without factoring in the combat prowess of the Grottomen themselves, the war beasts they wielded were all evolved creatures of F rank or higher. Of course, the true combat effectiveness of these evolved creatures was debatable, but they were still evolved beasts, immeasurably more ferocious and powerful than jackals, tigers, and leopards. According to Guz's subordinates, the Crystal Caves were home to 3 major Grottomen tribes, the Fiery Grotto, the Stoner Claw, and the most powerful Bloodbot, along with over a dozen smaller clans numbering only a few hundred or so. The total number of Grottomen reached over 10,000. Furthermore, scattered settlements of troglodytes were also found within the Crystal Caves, housing perhaps hundreds of these larger-than-life troglodytes. Apparently catching sight of the Grottomen bound like captives in Liu Ming's hands, the leaders of the Stoner Claw and Fiery Grotto tribes glared at Liu Ming and his men with unfriendly eyes. The Grottomen, comprised of nearly 200 Stoner Claw warriors, 200 Fiery Grotto warriors, and 300 to 400 Bloodbird knights, effectively surrounded them. Surrounded by these numerous cryptids, even Kao Xian Lang and Lu Xun hesitated for a moment. There were only about 100 humans here, but the dwarfs riding evolved beasts outnumbered them 7 or 8 times as many. Furthermore, these dwarfs didn't look as formidable as their height suggested. The fluttering blood-red bats, their eyes gleaming with menace, clearly weren't as easy to deal with as bats that could be crushed to death. With the humans, considered an alien race by the cryptids, surrounded, the leaders of several tribes waved their spears and ordered several cryptid warriors to spur their mounts toward the Amethyst Palace. As the Bloodbat Knights, with a look of caution, placed their spears against the Amethyst Palace's gate, a ripple of pale purple suddenly spread out from the Crystal Palace. When the ripples struck 3 cryptid warriors from the 3 major tribes, the cryptids and their beasts fell to the ground, paralyzed as if poisoned. The bloodbats plummeted several meters into the cold ground. Fortunately, the pale purple ripples only reached about 10 meters from the Crystal Palace, before dissipating into the air, halting the retreating crowd in their tracks. Liu Ming peered in, his expression slightly strained. The 3 crypt dwellers, along with their evolved beast mounts, were clearly completely dead, completely devoid of life. A sonic attack, or a soul wave attack. With this sudden change, even the 3 crypt dweller leaders lost their focus on Liu Ming and his group, instead gazing grimly at their fallen kin. Their hearts were consumed with anxiety. The fabled Amethyst Palace seemed so close, yet so far away. Just as everyone was at their wits' end, unwilling to risk further danger, the 3 crypt dweller leaders, with their cries of "Gus Gus," began to order their people to close in and attack. Their goal, however, was clearly not to kill them, but to force them into the Crystal Palace's purple ripples range, thereby testing a safe path to entry. Liu Ming was amused by their self-proclaimed cleverness. As expected, the Bloodbat Knight launched a series of precise spear strikes at Ruzuan's men, attempting to reduce their range from the cave. Entranced to the gates of the Amethyst Palace, Ruzuan, unable to restrain himself, finally conjured a giant hand of sand and earth, forcibly dragging him and his mount down from the air, crushing them to the ground in a pulp. Several soldiers, faced with stone claw warriors thrusting their spears, finally couldn't resist firing. After the lightning awakener scorched a fiery cavern warrior and its fiery armored warbeast, the battle between the 3 major tribes of humans and cavemen began in front of the Crystal Palace. P.S. Here's a second update. Thanks to my 8 brothers for their support. I've got all the names I want. This is the only way. Zinmengayan, 99.8, Brother Wildru, Ice Angel, CCCC 1234, How Lonely is Invincibility, and Aluo Lion. I would also like to thank the brothers who have persisted in voting and supporting me over the past few days. It is their persistence that has allowed me to complete the nearly 60 days of continuous typing without interruption, a feat that even I find somewhat incredible when I think about it. Chapter 115, Beheading in a Melee, Escape to Reinforcement. In reality, this wasn't Liu Ming's first encounter with intelligent creatures like the cryptids. In the past 10 years, he'd seen these short, comically beady-eyed creatures more than once. Within the safe zones of human-occupied areas, humans weren't the only intelligent species. Many other intelligent species existed, acting as vassals to humanity. The cryptids were one of these. Within these safe zones, they were often imbued with the ability to speak human language and then sold as slaves. Of course, even in the last decade, the trafficking of intelligent species and the use of slaves were not legal under human law. However, the prohibition against the buying and selling of intelligent species proved largely ineffective against the evolved. The various slave markets established outside the safe zones attracted countless evolved professionals, including many from the military and political sectors. Compared to ancient professions like servants and nannies, later generations of advanced professionals preferred to employ intelligent species as servants. Slaves, enslaved by various means, were relatively safer, allowing for unbridled exploitation and harsh treatment, as well as the fulfillment of their master's special demands. Most importantly, they were superior to ordinary humans in many respects. However, Liu Ming's servants consisted of a few clay golems, and he wasn't particularly interested in slavery. This didn't mean he wasn't familiar with all kinds of slaves. He even dabbled with slave traders for financial gain. Slaves like the crypt dwellers, small and lacking in combat potential, seemingly useless beyond cleaning the house, naturally fell into the lower echelons of the slave system. However, as someone once said, even the lowest ranking slaves could, under certain circumstances, unleash incredible power. At least for now, the crypt dwellers' fearless attack on humans left Liu Ming surprised and shocked. If it weren't for the few Guzgus he'd captured earlier, who still retained the cryptid's natural tendency to be timid and subservient to the strong, he would have suspected that the cryptid before him, whose stomach had been ripped open by the cavalry, his intestines and organs spilling out, yet still brandishing a spear to thrust at the cavalry, was some kind of warrior race in guise. A few dozen cryptids might be cowardly, but when they gathered in numbers of hundreds or even thousands, especially with a leader, they could unleash the power of a mighty army. Among the 4 groups, the Lightning Awakener's men had the lowest average strength. 3 of them were killed by the fiery cave warriors, driven back and forth by their warbeast mounts. One had his head pierced by a spear, another had his heart pierced by a spear, and then lifted and flung away. Another was stabbed by a bloodbat knight's short spear, then pinned to the ground by a fatal spear blow. The lightning awakener's eyes shone red as he watched his men die one after another. He roared, leveraging the momentum of the ground to leap forward, charging like a thunderbolt towards the leader of the fiery cave warriors, the fiery cave knight atop a one-man, high-armored war beast. The elderly-looking crypt dweller gazed upon the incoming lightning awakener with remarkable composure, even a hint of contempt in his eyes, as he simply raised his spear high at the oncoming foe. The lightning awakener instantly appeared less than 10 meters in front of the fiery cave leader. He clenched his fists and swung out, a lightning fist like Thor's fist swiftly slamming into the fiery cave leader. Just as everyone thought he was about to decapitate him, a shocking scene unfolded. The fiery cave leader's crystal armor suddenly erupted with a dazzling white light, the energy radiating from it completely blocking the devastating impact of the lightning fist and all the electric snakes. The tip of his crystal spear blazed with a dazzling light like a bomb exploding, mingled with a shockwave of astonishing destructive power. The lightning awakener, whose power level was incredibly close to C rank, was thrown backwards by the spear like a bird with a broken wing, spewing blood in midair, and slamming heavily into the solid rock wall. His men, all in panic, rushed to help him up. Seeing this, Liu Ming swallowed quietly. His eyes were filled with rage as he watched the fiery cave leader, his face full of triumph, after sending his enemy flying. Raw stone essence. He muttered in a voice only audible to himself. Liu Ming's eyes could clearly see that the strike was clearly not the result of the fiery cave leader's own strength, even at E rank, but rather a stunning blow drawn from the crystal spear in his hand through mysterious runes. The crystal spear and its armor were clearly not made of ordinary raw stone, but rather the essence of the raw stone, a treasure rarely seen in later generations. However, this blow also gave Liu Ming a chill. This lightning awakener's combat power was far superior to his own. Not only had he failed to behead him, but he had also been severely injured instantly. That strike undoubtedly possessed the power of a C-level evolver. The fierce cave leader's stunning attack clearly shocked many, even Lu Zuan, who was eager to kill the bloodbat leader, paused for a moment. Kao Xianlang also led his men to retreat, forming a fire network to block the relentless attack of the Stoneclaw warriors. The Stoneclaw beasts possessed a strong resistance to bullets. Their muscles and skin were as hard as rock. Even if a bullet penetrated the Stoneclaw's skin, it would usually be stuck in its incredibly strong muscles. Furthermore, the cave was difficult to reach at optimal range, making firearms difficult to inflict fatal damage. Conversely, Liu Ming and his group, because he had firmly controlled a dozen or so captives from the cave, made the cave warriors cautious in their attacks, fearing they might accidentally injure their own men. Combined with Fang and Steelheart force field and the chilling aura of Gu Yuan's frost sword, and with most of the cavemen drawn to the larger forces of the other three, they didn't feel much pressure for a while. Even the cunning Liu Ming was hidden underground as a surprise attack, and Sumi was in a shrunken state, unable to display her true combat power. Cavemen and humans continued to die. Just as the battle reached a stalemate, and the stench of blood and brutality intensified, a rush of footsteps echoed from outside the cave in trance. Kao Xianlang beamed at the sound. It was unmistakably the familiar clatter of military combat boots clacking the ground. Reinforcement had arrived. As expected, Sword Saints Ni Kangsang and Chu Yeshan were the first to appear at the cave in trance, followed by a large group of elite armed police and special forces. But what struck Liu Ming as odd was that these men didn't look at all anxious to rescue. Instead, their expressions of anxiety, nervousness, and even a hint of panic made them seem like they were fleeing for their lives. Just as all the armed police and special forces entered the cave in trance, the massive head of a crystal knight anaconda, a creature Liu Ming had just encountered, squeezed through. The massive 10-meter long body, still outside, squeezed the entrance, forcing it to collapse a second time. A hole that could only accommodate 2 people suddenly expanded to several meters high and wide. Liu Ming was certain that this crystal knight anaconda wasn't the one that had just escaped after its tail was severed by his attack, seeking revenge. Instead, it was another, completely intact anaconda. Behind it, a massive, over 4-meter tall, rock-like beast crawled in. It took several seconds for its entire 10-meter long body to fully enter the cave. Giant rock lizard. Liu Ming breathed deeply. Another C-rank monster. As if the heavens didn't think the cave was bustling enough, van-sized ice-armored venomous spiders, dark-clawed salamanders comparable in size to dragon salamanders, jade fire beasts blazing with emerald green flames, giant cave bears 7 or 8 meters tall covered in white bone armor, and nimble azure toads that leapt onto the cave ceiling rushed in one after another. Now he finally understood why Ni Kang Sang and the others had rushed in with such panicked expressions. They weren't here to reinforce, they were fleeing for their lives. PS. First update here. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 116, Entering the Crystal Palace. Holy Fire Beetle. 6 C-rank monsters, each one a C-rank, burst through the cave in trance. Their expressions, remarkably similar to those of the crypt dwellers, were frantically gazing at the amethyst palace, shimmering with a dazzling purple glow. Liu Ming, who had formed a battle formation with his men and summoned the lurking Zhenrong, was caught off guard. Instead of attacking them, the monsters charged directly towards the amethyst palace. Like 6 heavy bulldozers, the 6 massive monsters tore through the fiercely engaged humans and crypt dwellers, sending them careening backwards with shattered bones and blood gushing out. Those unlucky enough to be hit head on were sent flying backwards, their bodies shattered and blood gushing, a fate worse than being run over by a speeding truck. Within a few breaths, the astonishingly fast monsters reached the Crystal Palace, and the Azure Toad, with its incredible jumping ability, leaped first and charged towards the gate. Everyone watching from afar held their breath, and the battle between the crypt dwellers and humans paused for a moment, their faces tense as they stared at the sub-sized toad ramming into the gate. Invisible lavender ripples reappeared, and the Azure Toad was the first to be struck. Unlike the 3 crypt warriors before it, the toad froze, staggering and nearly collapsing. Just as everyone thought the toad was doomed, its wobbling form suddenly stopped. Its 2 powerful hind legs leaped with all their might, cracking the ground beneath them. It then smashed open the Crystal Palace's gates and rushed in. The 5 other monsters behind the toad, arriving late, followed suit, lurching into the Crystal Palace. This scene stunned the remaining throngs of those still engaged in the fray. The more powerful ones, such as Ko Xianlong, Lu Zuan, and Ni Kang Sang, quickly charged towards the Crystal Palace. They could readily see that the last few monsters to enter the Crystal Palace were only sea level, no different from them. If they could get in safely, they could probably do the same. Liu Ming turned to his 6 men and instructed them to wait outside, urging them to be careful and to return to the cave, where they had previously excavated the ore deposits, if any danger arose. Then, along with Sima Ji and Zering, he rushed towards the Amethyst Palace, following closely behind the 3 C-rank evolvers. The cave dwellers were not far behind. 3 tribal leaders, accompanied by over a dozen powerful personal guards, rode their mounts and charged forward. Even the Lightning Awakener, who had suffered heavy damage earlier, coughed up blood as he struggled towards the Crystal Palace. Some experts, who considered themselves formidable, followed closely behind, regardless of their own safety. When they reached the Crystal Palace, a pale purple wave struck again. The 3 powerful C-rank evolvers, Liu Ming, and the Lightning Awakener entered without incident. However, the E-rank evolvers, in agony from the purple wave, didn't collapse instantly like the cave dwellers before them, but they too screamed, as if they were being tortured. The last 6 or 7 E-rank evolvers who rushed forward all collapsed one after another, screaming and dying. The 3 E-rank cavemen leaders, also at the E-rank, managed to block the deadly wave attacks with their armor and successfully rushed in. Their personal guards, like the E-rank evolvers, were reduced to corpses. Inside the Amethyst Palace, the people rushing into the Crystal Palace felt not much excitement, but rather a sense of trepidation. The 6 C-rank monsters that had entered the Crystal Palace earlier were now covered in a dense swarm of pure white beetles, a terrifying sight. Each of these beetles was the size of a fist, larger than average, and boasted a pair of ferocious mouthparts. They burned with white flames, like white fireballs, as they pounced on the monsters and bit them. the crystal knight anaconda's raging energy blades, the phantom claw salamander's cyan claws, the azure toad's venom, the jade fire beast's dark green flames, and the ice armor venom spider's icy blasts were all powerless against these white insects. The energy-laden attacks melted the white flames instantly upon contact, like milk on boiling water. Furthermore, the bite force and destructive power of these white beetles were astonishing. All monsters were bruised and battered in a short period of time. Even the giant cave bear's bony armor was instantly gnawed and pitted. Holy fire beetle. Liu Ming shuddered, calmly inching behind the group that had just rushed into the crystal palace, still showing a glimmer of joy. Holy fire beetle. Insectoid. Holy insect subspecies. Attributes: fire, insect, devouring. Energy level. Potential. Nature: devour all energy and matter. Description: the white holy fire on their bodies can transform any attack that doesn't exceed their consuming capacity into energy, devouring it. Aside from pure physical attack, which crushes them to dust, there's virtually no way to stop their attacks. The holy fire beetle, one of the most terrifying monster species of the later world, had unexpectedly appeared here. Liu Ming was half terrified and half excited. He couldn't blame him. Any beast tamer with experience in zerg breeding in the future would likely share his feelings upon seeing a creature like the holy fire beetle. While terrifying, these creatures are also extremely powerful, making them the perfect pets for any beast tamer, provided they can be tamed. Liu Ming could tell at a glance that none of the holy fire beetles before him were above F rank. The reason he couldn't detect them with his insight wasn't because of their high energy level, but because the white holy fire completely blocked his insight. In the future, any holy fire beetle would fetch a staggeringly high price, yet so many appeared here at once, densely packed and countless. Thousands or tens of thousands? Of course, cultivating holy fire beetles is extremely difficult, as their growth rate is incredibly slow under natural conditions. If left to evolve on its own, a single holy fire beetle would likely take hundreds of years to advance from F rank to E rank. As for their lifespan, it's practically as eternal as their blazing white holy flame. At least no holy fire beetle has ever been seen dead of old age, so their maximum lifespan is unpredictable. Researchers estimate that the average holy fire beetle can live for thousands or even tens of thousands of years. Naturally, there's also artificial breeding and evolution, and many renowned individuals have become renowned for raising holy fire beetles. The most famous of these, of course, is... Wait. Liu Ming's eyes suddenly widened at this thought. The most famous is Song Qiu. His book, Best Beast Pet, Holy Fire Beetle, has inspired countless beast tamers to yearn for these terrifying and powerful creatures. He also possesses the only 6th rank holy fire beetle king in all of Wuling City. Thinking of this, he turned around and saw, as expected, Song Qiu and Li Kangxi, who had just entered the Amethyst Palace in a state of disarray. P.S. Here's a second update. Thanks to Jzislav, 998, Zinmengayan, Waldru, Bao Teng for Papapa, Xiao Xianai, and Li Yu for your support. Thanks to those who are still supporting Dragon Breeder. For these few brothers, I will also complete this book. Alas, it's so dull, I won't say more. Chapter 117 Sandstorm Giant, Secret Realm Energy Core. The holy fire beetles continued to attack the 6C rank monsters. The ice toads, with their weak defenses, were now half dead from the bites, their wounds emitting the stench of scorched flesh. While the pure physical attacks of a C-rank creature could occasionally crush a few F-rank holy fire beetles, the slain holy fire beetles represented a negligible casualty compared to the terrifying total. The elemental sky dragons, sandstorm sword saints, and wandering dragon sword saints of later generations could no longer contain their attacks and quickly attacked the holy fire beetles, now finding their new targets. Clearly unaware of the holy fire beetle's terrifying power, the 3 powerful beings launched elemental magic wrecking balls, sandstorm tornadoes, and 8 trigrams wandering dragon sword energy at the holy fire beetles, but they were merely blown away by the shockwaves, and continued their crawl towards the crowd, unperturbed. Despite their rapid speed, the time it took to reach them gave the stunned crowd time to recover. Fortunately, the holy fire beetles only gained flight after reaching the second stage. Otherwise, they would have pierced the energy flow and pounced directly into the crowd, leaving no one time to react. In a split second, the first batch of holy fire beetles had already reached the 3 formidable warriors standing in the front. They finally realized that their most powerful attacks were nearly ineffective against the monsters before them. No wonder the 6 formidable creatures were in such agony. The 3 warriors drew their weapons and attacked the holy fire beetles with pure force. One by one, holy fire beetles were knocked down and sent flying. When the holy fire beetles were too numerous to defend themselves, they would use energy attacks to repel the swarm and defend themselves. The battle was at a stalemate, with Song Qinkyu and his pet sword lion and Li Kangxi rushing to their aid, and one of Lu Zuan's men who had also entered the Crystal Palace joining in. The 6 of them temporarily held the upper hand against the hundreds of holy fire beetles. The 3 crypt leaders weren't so lucky. Each of them was only at E level, relying on their special armor and spears crafted from the essence of the ore to enter the Crystal Palace. But under the onslaught of the holy fire beetles, which were nearly impervious to energy attacks, the glow on their armor dimmed, their faces filled with terror, and the white light shield seemed to be crumbling. It wasn't long before the holy fire beetles breached the energy shields of the 3 crypt leaders. They hadn't even witnessed their tribe's legendary treasure reduced to 3 skeletal remains. Liu Ming, along with Zeli Rang and Sumi, hid at the back, managing to deal with any missed holy fire beetles with ease. The lightning awakener, even more cowardly than Liu Ming, hid near the Crystal Palace gate, ready to flee if the situation became unsettling. Unfortunately, their peace was short-lived. A round, white figure suddenly crawled out from a side door near the palace. Before anyone could get a good look, the figure flashed through space like a flash of lightning, lunging headfirst at the 6 men, and one beast standing in the way. Meanwhile, one of Ruzuan's fellow D-rank minions had somehow managed to crush 2 holy fire beetles to death with a bizarre mace-like weapon. This sight sparked a flash of hatred in the white figure's eyes, and it lunged forward, biting him in the face. The D-rank evolver barely managed to scream before the force of the lightning-fast attack sent him sprawling to the ground. A pair of large white pincers pierced his eyes, instantly piercing his eye sockets and leaving them bloody holes. Only then did everyone see the white figure's true form, a massive holy fire beetle the size of a human head, its flames blazing countless times more intensely than those of its still attacking brethren. The only difference between it and the other holy fire beetles was that its eyes would occasionally dart around, glancing at Kaoshai and Lang and the others, amusement and cruelty flashing through them, all too human. Meanwhile, the evolved person, who had been the first to be attacked, had been reduced to a torch by the white holy fire, his head ablaze with flames, and he let out frantic, horrified cries. But with his vitality, he wasn't immediately vulnerable. He stretched out his hands, attempting to tear the holy fire beetle from his face, but to no avail. The holy fire beetle, the size of a human head, seemed to be glued to him, and no matter how hard he pulled, it wouldn't budge. The flesh on his hands, scorched by the white flames like wax, was left only with the bare bones, yet it remained untwisted. This tug only intensified the holy fire beetle's ferocity, causing it to wield its massive pincers once more, probing deeper into his skull from his eye sockets. The tips of its pincers ripped out again, bringing up 2 pale masses. The evolver was now unable to utter a single scream. It twitched violently twice on the ground before finally passing out, its head still ablaze with holy fire. Sandstorm Ruzuan, watching this scene, was filled with rage. His most trusted subordinate had died in such a tragic manner, reduced to a corpse in the blink of an eye, before he could even react. How could he possibly accept this? He instantly transformed into a raging sandstorm, sweeping away dozens of the holy fire beetles that had been attacking him, and then charging towards the suddenly appearing, incredibly ferocious, giant holy fire beetle. The holy fire beetle, still feasting on the corpse's head, raised its head and let out a sharp cry. The holy fire beetle still surrounding the 6 monsters and the others suddenly converged on him, like subjects guarding their king, making it difficult for Ruzuan, the sandstorm, to approach. Holy fire beetle king. Liu Ming's eyes flashed with shock. Among the holy fire beetle clan, only their king could command the others. To his surprise, this incredibly ferocious holy fire beetle was actually the king. Even at this sight, Lu Zuan remained unfazed. With a roar, he charged forward instead of retreating. The sandstorm suddenly accelerated like a tornado, its swirling sand and gravel seemingly growing larger and larger. A massive sand giant, composed of sand and stone, appeared at its center. The sand giant clenched its fist and swung it, its car-sized fist crashing down upon the insect swarm. Over a dozen holy fire beetles were shattered to pieces in a single blow. Just as the sand giant was about to deliver a second blow, the holy fire beetle king abandoned the dead body and, igniting a blazing white flame several meters high, charged into the sandstorm with unbridled fury. Ko Xianlong, Ni Kangsong, and the others also charged forward. Everyone knew the principle of the mortal enemy. If the powerful physical attack of the sand giant fell, they would be even more vulnerable to these intractable insects, seemingly immune to energy attacks. Brilliant blades, powerful magic meteorites, silver white heavy spears, and the sharp claws of a sword lion all descended upon the ferocious holy fire beetle king. Even Liu Ming, accompanied by Ji Zirong and Su Mi, charged forward. Fishing in troubled waters was no longer an option. A swarm with the holy fire beetle king, and one without were two completely different levels of danger. If everyone standing in the way perished, there was little hope of escaping the holy fire beetle king. The combined attacks of the crowd formed a torrent of energy, sending the holy fire beetle king and the surrounding holy fire beetles flying. Under the raging energy attack, a subtle, almost imperceptible spatial ripple suddenly appeared in the center of the hall, and countless beams of dazzling light emanated from them. The secret energy core, hidden within the spatial interlayer, finally emerged under the violent energy onslaught. It resembled a multifaceted, rhombus-shaped, multicolored crystal, placed on a circular platform of starbursts. P.S. Here's the first update. Chapter 118, Yellow Sand Dragon, Sword Key Prison. The moment Liu Ming saw the colorful diamond-shaped crystal appear, his eyes narrowed, and he instinctively wanted to rush in that direction and snatch it. But seeing the others sharing his excitement, he suppressed the risky thought. While others might have only vaguely suspected that this mysterious crystal, suddenly appearing and radiating a rainbow of light, must be a formidable treasure within the Amethyst Palace, Liu Ming knew it was the secret realm energy core that would drive countless evolvers mad with fervor. Possessing and integrating it, one could single-handedly gain access to virtually all the hidden treasures within the secret realm. The moment the crystal appeared, the atmosphere within the Crystal Palace froze, as everyone and every monster looked in that direction with immense excitement. Even the nearly dying azure toad seemed to regain its strength, its legs slightly bent, as if ready to leap to the location and seize the mysterious crystal. However, the repeated injuries it had sustained made it hesitant, and it waited and watched for an opportunity. Only the Holy Fire Beetle King gazed at the colorful crystal without a fiery frenzied emotion. Instead, a faint fear, akin to a resentful dread, tinged with hatred, filled his gaze. Though this emotion was subtle, expressed entirely through the Holy Fire Beetle King's eyes, it was as clear as day to Liu Ming, who possessed the ability to telepathically communicate. Liu Ming frowned, wondering, is this creature imprisoned here by some mysterious force? Or is the Holy Fire Beetle the guardian of this secret energy core in the Amethyst Palace? Later, he had vaguely heard that the appearance of the secret energy core was accompanied by bloody battles and fighting. It was also said that these bloody battles involved not only human conflict, but also the presence of other monsters. As Liu Ming pondered this, the giant in the sandstorm swung his fist, crushing a small group of holy fire beetles. The Holy Fire Beetle King became even more frantic and ferocious. Their attacks held it back for only a few breaths, before it transformed into a meteor of white flame, and hurled itself into the sandstorm, its target clearly the still wavering sand giant. This scene sent a chill through everyone's hearts. If the sand giant gave way, who could possibly stop this vicious insect? At this critical moment, Ko Xianlong, sword in hand, soared through the air, also charging into the sandstorm. His speed was incredibly fast, like a cannonball fired from a gun. Waves of white air erupted from his feet, surpassing even the breathtaking speed of the Holy Fire Beetle. Just as the Holy Fire Beetle King's attack reached the sand giant, Ko Xianlong slashed his sword across the beetle's body. Bang! The direct confrontation between Ko Xianlong and the Holy Fire Beetle ended with the elemental dragon of later times being sent flying, while the Holy Fire Beetle King retreated only half a meter. Liu Ming swallowed hard at this outcome. Ko Xianlong's subsequent renown as Wu Ling's strongest wasn't solely due to his advanced elemental masterclass. His mastery of ancient martial arts was also transcendent. Even with his limited knowledge of ancient martial arts, he could discern the subtle power of using softness to overcome hardness in that horizontal sword strike, yet he still suffered such a crushing defeat. There was only one possibility. This was a B-rank Holy Fire Beetle King, significantly higher in power than Ko Xianlong, a late C-rank cultivator. Furious after being blocked, the Holy Fire Beetle King immediately attacked Ko Xianlong, its massive pincers like deadly scythes sending a chill through the crowd. Just as Ko Xianlong, momentarily weakened and forced to block with his sword again, the Wandering Dragon Sword Saint leaped forward, wielding several 8 trigrams Wandering Dragon Swordsmen, fiercely slashing at the ferocious Insect King. In this attack, Ni Kangsan clearly employed the 6 Illusions Absolute Shadow Sword technique that Liu Ming had previously traded with him. Of the several blade shadows, only 2 were actual blade auras. The other 4 were merely manifestations of the 6 Illusion Absolute Shadow Blades, their power only compounded by the blade aura itself. The immense destructive energy contained within these 6 blade shadows was devoured by the meters-high white holy flames. However, the immense force still sent the holy fire beetles reeling several meters back. Even the white holy flames flickered for a moment, but in less than half a breath, the flames blazed brightly again, and the Holy Fire Beetle King attacked the 2 once again. This time, dozens of its Holy Fire Beetle guards also rushed into the sandstorm, charging with overwhelming force, and making the situation precarious. Ruzan, still wielding his sandstorm fist against the insect swarm, seemed to have noticed the situation. He was only able to remain unscathed, because the Insect King hadn't yet launched an attack. If all the Holy Fire Beetles had attacked his sandstorm giant, his fate would likely have been no worse than his own men. He had a clear understanding of the situation. No one attacked by the Holy Fire Beetles could die at this moment, otherwise the remaining people would be slain one by the swarm, all destined for the same fate. With a change of heart, he abandoned his attack on the seemingly endless swarm and instead maneuvered his massive body, spanning dozens of meters, to block Ko Xianlong and Ni Kangsan. While the sand giant possessed impressive offensive power, its body, composed entirely of sand, offered limited defense. Like sandworms plunging into a sea of sand, the swarm burrowed into the sand giant's body, one after another. A roar of shock and anger emanated from the sand giant's body. The sand giant then collapsed into a hail of sand, and Lu Zuan retreated from the rain, standing shoulder to shoulder with Ko Xianlong and Ni Kangsan. Blood dripped from his knuckles, seemingly missing a piece, likely from the bite of the Holy Fire Beetles. If you have any special moves, use them now. Don't worry, you'll be dead. Lu Zuan's face darkened, as if he felt resentful for having protected the 2 from disaster. As he spoke, a yellow light flashed in Lu Zuan's hand, and a spear seemingly composed entirely of sand appeared in his grasp. He hurled it with all his might. As it left his hand, it twisted like a living thing, transforming into a yellow sandstorm dragon that charged towards the Holy Fire Beetle King. The other 2's expressions changed, and as they watched the approaching Holy Fire Beetle King and the swarm of insects behind him, they seemed to have made up their minds. Ni Kangsan pulled out a scroll and tore it open. 8 long swords flew out from the scroll, their blades radiating a raging energy, forming a square-shaped cage of blade energy that attacked the Holy Fire Beetle King. Ko Xianlong, on the other hand, drew out a staff shimmering with 5-colored light. The gem on its tip pointed in the direction of the Holy Fire Beetle King's flight, but he hesitated to attack. The Sandstorm Dragon took the lead in the battle with the Holy Fire Beetle King. Despite the Holy Fire Beetle King's terrifying energy draining ability, the Sandstorm Dragon's attack clearly exceeded that of a B-level attack, and even the White Holy Flame was unable to completely destroy it. The Holy Fire Beetle King, the size of a human head, was tossed around like a ball by the dragon's bite, momentarily unable to charge towards Ruzan and the others. Just as the fight between the dragon and the Insect King reached a stalemate, 8 long swords arrived, forming a cage of blade energy that enveloped both the dragon and the Holy Fire Beetle King. Under the dragon's bites and the sword slashing energy, the Holy Fire Beetle King's previous ferocity vanished, and it was instead tottered and reeled, like a small boat on a massive wave. PS. Second update here. Thanks to Gentlemen of the Gentleman's Tribe, 99.8, Zin Mengayan, Waldru, Yi Lion Sang, Tanemo, Santry, Jintasaus Guoda, Xiodiseng, and Mysterious Xioyao for their support. The recommendation count is almost over 10,000. Fellow Dragon Keepers, please show up quickly. Please recommend, reward, and support me. Chapter 119 Elemental Destruction, a Fatal Blow. As the Sandstorm Dragon and Blade Energy continuously attacked the Holy Fire Beetle King, its insect swarm guards frantically tried to break into the Blade Energy prison and rescue the king, but they were unable to break through the Blade Energy barrier. Consequently, the Holy Fire Beetle guards all madly rushed towards the instigators, the three who attacked their king. Seeing the insect swarm coming, Lu Zuan once again transformed into a sandstorm giant, beating the attacking Holy Fire Beetles to pieces. However, this time, he only manifested one arm of the sand giant, leaving the rest of his body untouched. Clearly, this move had limitations. Ni Kangzang's 8 trigrams Wandering Dragon repeatedly cleaved the Holy Fire Beetles away. Ko Xianlang used his staff as a long staff, smashing the attacking insects to pieces. The dozens of Holy Fire Beetle guards were clearly no match for the 3 sea-level evolvers, and they were decimated in a matter of moments. Trapped in the sword energy cage, the Holy Fire Beetle King, increasingly distraught at the heavy casualties suffered by his guards, was filled with rage. He momentarily ignored the incessant bites of the Sandstorm Dragon, and roared to the heavens. Below the sandstorm, numerous Holy Fire Beetles, still engaged in a fierce battle with 6 C-rank monsters and Liu Ming's group, paused their attacks upon hearing the roar. They leaped high into the sandstorm. The less powerful Holy Fire Beetles, finding their leaps in vain, collectively climbed to the roof of the Amethyst Palace, and plunged directly above the sandstorm. Watching the Holy Fire Beetles falling like dumplings from the 10-meter-high crystal palace beyond the murky yellow sand curtain, the 3 men, who had already decimated dozens of Holy Fire Beetles above E rank in the sandstorm, showed no sign of joy, but rather a grimace. Most of the Holy Fire Beetles capable of leaping 10 or 20 meters into the air successfully plunged into the tornado. The F-ranked Holy Fire Beetles, lacking the necessary bounce to fall from the palace roof, were flung back by the tornado's immense force. However, hundreds upon hundreds of them still swarmed densely into the sea of sand. They brandished their massive claws, their claws crackling with bite as they fearlessly charged at the Blade Key prison. Like a swarm of termites gnawing at a house, they gradually devoured the B-rank Blade Key energy barrier. Seeing the Blade Key prison's energy weakening under the bite of the thousands of insects, the 3 C-rank evolvers quickly leaped forward to attack the swarm. The pressure on the monsters and the people below, temporarily freed from the massive insect swarm, was greatly reduced. The still living Azure Toad leaped toward the center of the Amethyst Palace, heading for the colorful crystal. But as soon as it leaped, the other 5 terrifying monsters followed closely behind. The giant cave bear, in particular, reached out with a frenzied jerk. Its stone brick-sized paw firmly grasped one of the Azure Toad's hind legs, and with a swung its pillar-like arm, it slammed it backwards. The toad, already in its final moments of life, its vitality dwindling, leaped up like a cannonball, and then fell to the ground like a cannonball, leaving a crater several meters deep in the crystal floor. A dozen Holy Fire Beetles, unable to evade, were also slammed into the floor, their flesh reduced to pulp with a sizzling sound. But more Holy Fire Beetles swarmed in, crawling all over the Azure Toad, now severely injured, and unable to stand. A dozen breaths later, before the horrified gaze of Liu Ming and the others, the Azure Toad was reduced to a bloody corpse. The Holy Fire Beetles, now well fed, continued their swarm towards the battling monsters. Even the Holy Flames still attacking Liu Ming, Li Kangxi, and the others crept in that direction, as if driven by a mysterious force, to attack any life that dared approach the secret realm's energy core. With the pressure completely gone, Li Kangxi and the others immediately rushed into the sandstorm, even the severely injured Lightning Awakener. Everyone felt a sense of relief. If they couldn't slay the ferocious and terrifying Holy Fire Beetle King, no one present would escape alive. As the Lightning Awakener had secretly demonstrated, the Crystal Palace's gates were like a closed iron wall, impenetrable. Escape was now impossible. Although Xianlong and the other two were frantically slaughtering the insects swarming on the sword energy barrier, the sword energy cage had become shaky after this period of consumption, and the Holy Fire Beetle King within seemed poised to escape at any moment. Gazing at the Holy Fire Beetle King's mad hateful gaze, everyone knew what would happen when it emerged. The three's attacks intensified. Crack. A sound like an eggshell cracking echoed. The sword energy cage transformed into an energy storm, sweeping towards everyone and the surrounding insect swarm. Hundreds of holy fire beetles were sent flying, and the Holy Fire Beetle King successfully escaped. Now, only a languishing sandstorm dragon stood in the way of the three. It was clear it couldn't hold out for much longer. After all, energy-created creatures lacked the endurance of real creatures. As the Holy Fire Beetle King and the remaining insect swarm charged towards them, Xianlong raised his staff. The mysterious gem atop it once again aimed at it. Boom. With a sound like a heavy artillery fire, a dazzling multicolored beam of light shot straight towards the Holy Fire Beetle King. The pair of fingertip-sized eyes on the insect king's massive body flashed with horror before being enveloped by the energy beam. Elemental destruction light. Liu Ming perched on Sumi's back as several crimson rays blasted away several holy fire beetles, was also shocked. This move was one of the ultimate moves of the later elemental dragons. He could actually unleash it now. But when he saw the staff in Xianlong's hand, he felt relieved. It turned out to be the power of a divinely blessed item. The holy fire beetles melted like butter in the blazing beam of elemental destruction light. The Holy Fire Beetle King, like a piece of iron, clung to the flames. It frantically tried to escape the destruction light's attack range, but as if its feet were glued to its feet, it couldn't move an inch, and could only be passively tossed about by the destruction light. Seeing this, Liu Ming finally felt relieved. The destruction light's energy fluctuations had definitely reached a level. It seemed the Holy Fire Beetle King was doomed. With Sumi around, a dozen or so holy fire beetles were no match for him. So, he focused his attention on the battle for the secret realm energy core behind him. The battle between the 5 monsters intensified, with one having a large piece of flesh torn off, another having a bloody eye gouged out. Add to that the swarm of insects fighting in the chaos, and the situation became chaotic. It was unclear who would claim the secret realm energy core. Or perhaps all 5 monsters would perish tragically before the secret realm energy core, devoured by the insect swarm, reduced to mere skeletons. No, perhaps not even a bone would remain. In that moment of distraction, the dazzling beam of elemental destructive light gradually faded, and the seemingly lifeless body of the Holy Fire Beetle King flew free under the final impact of the destructive light. Which direction was it heading? Remarkably, Liu Ming's direction. Milky white blood oozes from the Holy Fire Beetle King, its armor tattered and tattered, its white holy fire reduced to a thin, barely visible flame. When the Holy Fire Beetle King was only a few meters away from Liu Ming casually unleashed several evil dragon spells, attempting to blast it away. The Holy Fire Beetle King's corpse was now a hot potato. If he were to seize it, he would likely sacrifice his life. Furthermore, his ultimate goal was the secret realm energy core, and Zhenrong had already quietly slipped away under his orders. Therefore, it was best to remain as low-key as possible and stay away from this vortex. But fate seemed to have no intention of granting him this. The Holy Fire Beetle King, presumed a corpse, twisted and evaded the incoming wicked dragon curse, charging straight at Liu Ming's face. In this critical moment, Liu Ming recalled the tragic death of the D-rank evolver. Over 10 shards of wicked dragon curse materialized before him, temporarily blocking the Holy Fire Beetle King's dying blow. Furious, Liu Ming quickly raised his absolute blade and unleashed its indestructible power. Deadly crimson, molten power, and pale flames coalesced upon the absolute blade. He slashed through the Holy Fire Beetle King's head, which had been shattered by the destructive light and gushed blood. He sliced through the carcass as smoothly as a knife cutting through tofu. Looking at the Holy Fire Beetle King's body, still twitching unconsciously but already beyond death, Liu Ming's face showed signs of hesitation and struggle. He didn't want to grab this top-level sacrifice just now, because he wanted to escape from the vortex, but now it's obvious that he killed it, and it would be a bit against his style to let him give up. In the end, in the face of everyone's incredible expressions, Liu Ming, the D-level early evolver with the weakest personal strength among everyone present, was so bold as to put away the Holy Fire Beetle King with a big head. He did not show his magical camera, but took off his coat with an expressionless face, wrapped the Holy Fire Beetle King, which was dead, and no longer burning white holy fire, in his clothes, packed it into a simple package, and carried it on his back. Peas, the first update is here. Yesterday, I wanted to update 3 times due to the request of my brothers and the recommendation of the difficult breakthrough of 10,000, but I went to the hospital for an 4th trip at night due to an emergency. I was on 4th trip all day today. I will make up for it tomorrow with 3 more updates. Chapter 120 The Power of Time and Space. Where is the treasure? Hand it over. Greed will only get you killed. Lu Zuan's voice rang out, his eyes brimming with murderous intent, leaving no doubt he would unleash a murderous blow at any moment. Brother, we've been friends before. Hand it over. Don't take what's not yours. The immense value of the B-rank special offering, the body of the Holy Fire Beetle King, instantly shattered the tenuous friendship between Liu Ming and Ni Kangzang. Hand it over immediately, Kao Xianlong said coldly. Without a word, he simply pointed his staff at Liu Ming, clearly poised to attack at the slightest provocation. Liu Ming's expressionless face suddenly formed a strange smile. He looked at the menacing crowd without responding, simply patting Sumi's head. In a flash of purple lightning, Sumi and Liu Ming vanished. Before these future generations of Wuling's most renowned masters, Liu Ming finally unleashed his true power. Sumi, even faster than the Holy Fire Beetle King, exploded in an instant, leaving behind only the stunned crowd. The Holy Fire Beetles, which had been charging at Liu Ming, saw the murderer who had decapitated their king vanish, and could only cast their ferocious frantic eyes at Kao Xianlong and the others who remained. Fuck you. Go to hell. Song Kinkyo cursed as he directed the already exhausted Sword Lion to deal with the frenzied insect swarm. He had encountered that fellow twice and gained nothing, yet he was taking the blame for the one who had knocked him unconscious. It was outrageous. Liu Ming had already rushed towards the center of the Crystal Palace, his target clearly the mystical energy core, shrouded in a shimmering, multicolored halo. But he had Sumi use her sharp claws to stop him about 10 or 20 meters from the core. He would have believed it, even to his death, if he had said there was no danger around the core. The battle between the 5 monsters and the insect swarm had reached its final stages. Faced with the tens of thousands of holy fire beetles, each one was covered in wounds, not a single piece of skin intact. If it weren't for the monster's incredible vitality, these injuries would have killed them several times over. A large claw and thick tail of the phantom claw salamander had been gnawed to a skeletal state. A giant cave bear, its abdomen drenched in blood, dragged a section of intestines protruding from its abdomen, yet it still swung its arms, thick as stone pillars, repeatedly striking at the insect swarm. The ice-armored poison spider's white frost armor had been gnawed to shreds, revealing flesh and blood, while green poisonous blood continuously oozed out. Nearly a quarter of the crystal knight anaconda's body was scarred to the bone, still ablaze with an inextinguishable white holy fire, resembling a burning black stick. Only the jade fire beast appeared to be less distressed. Its emerald green flames seemed to contain a terrifying toxin, staining even ordinary holy fire beetles green with pain when they pounced on them. Only elite E-rank holy fire beetles dared to cling to it and hold on tightly. The 5 monsters were clearly quite intelligent. Seeing the Holy Fire Beetle King slain, and several humans entangled by the insect swarm, they quickly exerted their strength to shoo away the surrounding insects, and rushed towards the secret realm energy core. The Jade Fire Beast led the charge, puffing its cheeks like a toad, and unleashing a stream of inky green flames at the surrounding insects, forcing them to retreat. It also seized the opportunity to charge towards the secret realm energy core. However, as the Jade Fire Beast, at its astonishing speed, reached within 10 meters of the secret realm energy core, its skin and muscles were instantly sliced apart like tofu struck by an incredibly sharp blade. The Jade Fire Beast's relatively modest defenses were instantly ripped into several pieces. Without even a scream, this terrifying beast, which had managed to maintain its strength despite the Holy Fire Beetle's attack, was reduced to a pile of shattered remains. The remaining people and the 4 monsters, observing the jade fire beast's fleeting dark red blood, realized that the nearly 100 square meter area surrounding the secret realm energy core had been separated from the rest of the crystal palace. At the junction of the 2 dimensions, the dividing surfaces of the spatial fragments were still stained with the jade fire beast's blood. Forcing their way through with the strength of those present would only result in being ripped to pieces by the world's sharpest force of space and time. Everyone's expression was grim. Was the Crystal Palace's greatest treasure to be consigned to mere contemplation? The 4 lingering monsters roared with fury and violence. They had paid such a high price for nothing, nearly going insane. Liu Ming's face also changed, a look of worry on his face. He was about to summon Ji Zerong, who had previously, under his orders, infiltrated the Crystal Palace's underground to approach the secret realm energy core, to prevent it from following the Jade Fire Beast's footsteps. Suddenly, the crystal floor beneath the secret realm energy core bulged upwards, and a stealthy figure poked its head out from behind the bulge. It was Ji Zerong, who had been lurking underground. Ji Zerong poked his head out of the ground, seemingly unaware of the danger. Liu Ming, however, was anxiously trying to stop it. Who knew if there were still cosmic fragments of power around the secret realm energy core? He would rather not have this precious secret realm energy core than the safety of his own dragon pet. After all, life was more important than treasure. There were more than one secret realm, but there was only one Ji Zerong. Ji Zerong, stop. Liu Ming hadn't finished his words when Ji Zerong leaped and snatched the dazzling secret realm energy core from the starlight circular platform. Then, to the stunned eyes of everyone, he swiftly burrowed through the crystal floor and into the ground. You're so cruel. Liu Ming was inwardly amazed at the fortitude of his dragon pet. He would never have dared to seize the secret realm energy core without knowing the situation. As the secret realm energy core vanished, everyone turned their attention to Liu Ming, knowing it was his beast pet. Yet, Liu Ming remained calm. At this moment, with Sumi's speed, he truly possessed the confidence to stand out from the crowd. Just as Lu Zuan, transformed into a sandstorm, charged at him, Sumi transformed into a burst of purple lightning and vanished. The next moment, Sumi was already at the Crystal Palace's gates. Lu Zuan, a snarl on his face, charged towards them. The lightning awakener shook his head, a hint of sarcasm on his lips. He'd tried before, and the Crystal Palace gates were a dead end. He'd tried it himself, and it was impossible to open. He'd been trapped in a dead end. Who knew that this time, Liu Ming's gentle push actually shoved the gates open. He then transformed into lightning, a purple phantom surging outward. What the hell? How did he open it? The lightning awakener exclaimed in shock. He hadn't known that Ji Zerong had slipped out of the Crystal Palace the moment he'd seized the secret realm energy core. He'd secretly shared this information with Liu Ming. If Ji Zerong had been able to escape, it proved that the invisible barrier protecting the Crystal Palace had also vanished with the disappearance of the energy core. Sure enough, the nearly sealed gate could be pushed open again. As soon as Liu Ming and Sumi left the Crystal Palace, Ji Zerong emerged from the ground not far away. It couldn't wait to put the secret realm energy core in Liu Ming's hand with a flattering expression, as if it was presenting a treasure. Liu Ming didn't have time to take a closer look before putting the energy core in his arms, because the people and monsters behind him were already rushing over. Ji Zerong, take Marjan, Garlin and the others and run. Liu Ming ordered anxiously. If you don't leave, after taking away the treasure, when will you leave? Upon hearing this, Ji Zerong quickly rushed over, grabbed one with one claw, held Marjan Gu Yuan in his mouth, wrapped Garlin with his tail, and drilled into the ground. But Ji Zerong had only half of his body in the ground when Lu Zuan, Ko Xian Long and Ni Kang-san came to kill him in anger. Please, here is the second update, a little late, brothers, please forgive me for being a patient. Chapter 121, one man stands guard over the enemy, capable of nuclear fusion. Lu Zuan's giant hand of yellow sand swooped down first, aiming for Ji Zerong's tail, still exposed above the ground. The hand, vast and obscuring, capable of crushing a car in an instant, was about to capture the fleeing Ji Zerong, and, in the process, crush the gobbering entangled in his tail into a pulp. In this critical moment, Liu Ming and Sumi blocked the giant hand of yellow sand. Sumi suddenly erupted from her mouth, a column of purple fire erupting from her mouth. Hundreds of evil dragon spells emerged before Liu Ming, crashing into the giant hand. A massive explosion echoed as the three attacks collided, drastically reducing the power of the giant hand of yellow sand, though its residual force was still poised to impact Sumi and Liu Ming. The scarlet hand suddenly glowed with blood, emitting over a dozen crimson razors thick as an arm, piercing through the giant hand of yellow sand, which had shrunk to the size of a man. By the time the hand reached them, it was already shattered. Sumi swung her claws fiercely, and Liu Ming, likewise, raised his sword. Crossed claw marks and a flash of black blade light appeared simultaneously, the giant hand of yellow sand being easily split apart like a curtain of sand, turning it into a cloud of dust. Not far away, Kao Xianlong and Ni Kangzhang's attacks also arrived. The heroic spirit of nature had been summoned by Liu Ming. Kaimengwen waved his hand and unleashed a vine shield against Kao Xianlong's powerful magic wrecking ball. A brown-black wooden shield, entwined with strong, twisted vines, instantly blocked him. Kaimengwen, not stopping, unleashed the crown of nature on the vine shield. As if struck by a lush green tree crown, the shield instantly expanded several times in size. From 1 meter in diameter, it expanded to nearly 5 meters. Mysterious patterns resembling tree rings appeared on the shield, making it appear indestructible. The magic wrecking ball, with its attack power reaching sea level, collided with the vines blessed by the crown of nature. Although Kaimengwen's power level had reached the pinnacle of D rank, he was still far from enough to face the elemental dragon head-on. The massive vine shield was already crumbling under the onslaught of the magic wrecking balls. Countless tangible energies, like sawdust, splattered everywhere, and the entire shield was shattered from the center. Kaimengwen swung his deadwood staff frantically, and deadly thorns, like long spiky black snakes, burst forth from it, and swarmed towards the shield. Then, with the blessing of another natural crown, the thorny black snakes, once the thickness of an adult's arm, suddenly expanded to the thickness of an adult's waist. Like ferocious pythons, they coiled around the vine shield, resisting the onslaught of the magic wrecking balls. Eventually, the magic wrecking balls broke through the double defense of the deadly thorns and the vine shield, but their remaining power was greatly diminished. Kaimengwen waved his hand, and several balls of dark green, binding light, enhanced by the crown of nature, expanded from the size of a human head to the size of a millstone, tightly entangling several magic destruction balls that had shrunk to the size of fists. Only Ni Kangzhang's 8 trigrams wandering dragon blade key remained, and Liu Ming was no longer able to reach it. A khaki figure suddenly appeared. It was Ji Zireng's sandstorm soul, its massive body temporarily blocking Ni Kangzhang. After the crowd's intervention, Ji Zireng, who had burrowed into the mud, vanished like a fish in water. Seeing the giant salamander monster that had stolen the treasure burrow into the ground, Lu Zuan, also proficient in earth-based abilities, transformed into a sandstorm and attempted to give chase. The lightning awakener shouted, "The treasure is with this kid. I just saw it. As soon as he leaves the Crystal Palace, I'll hand that monster over to him." The 3 C-rank warriors, toyed around like monkeys by a D-rank evolver, were filled with murderous intent, and turned their guns, all charging at Liu Ming. Go. Liu Ming, without a word, summoned the nature heroic spirit, and shouted to Sumi. As soon as he finished speaking, a purple shadow flashed by, as swift as lightning. The 3 warriors' attacks each ripped apart a purple phantom, and Liu Ming and Sumi vanished. A faint flash of purple lightning could be seen passing through the distant cave in trance. Meanwhile, the 4 monsters also broke free from the holy fire beetle's clutches and rushed out of the Crystal Palace. They turned to see not Ji Zireng, who had taken the treasure, but the equally wicked Ni Kangzhang, whom they had chased to this cave. With bloodshot eyes, they attacked the sullen-faced Ni Kangzhang. Liu Ming, already inside the cavernous passage, heard the roars of the monsters behind him, and vaguely understood what was happening. It was likely the 4 monsters were fighting the humans again. However, none of this concerned him anymore. Leaving this chaotic vortex and merging the secret realm's energy core was his top priority. Sumi followed Ji Zireng's whereabouts. Not only was there an unbreakable mystical connection between Liu Ming's dragon pet, but even between dragon pets themselves. Without Liu Ming's guidance, Sumi led him to Jizeri-rang. Jizeri-rang was lurking beneath the cavern, where Liu Ming and him had first encountered the crystal knight anaconda. He only emerged stealthily after Liu Ming entered the cavern. "Good fellow. You nearly got your master killed." Liu Ming smirked, cursing Jizeri-rang, who nudged his large head affectionately towards him. Taking on the first few of the Wuling 16 peaks alone and escaping unscathed was a thrilling experience no one in Wuling had ever experienced before. His realm was considered quite high. The 7 people rescued by Sumi were now covered in dust and dirt. Ice Mage Han Piaoxu was even more breathless, half bent on the ground, gasping for breath, clearly suffocating underground. Liu Ming ignored them, lost in thought. 2 options lay before him. The first was to immediately head for the cavern containing the spatial passageway, but there was no guarantee someone would be waiting there, trapping them. The second was to fuse the secret realm energy core, gaining control of the entire secret realm spatial passageway and moving freely. After pondering for a few breaths, Liu Ming finally produced the secret realm energy core that had captivated all living beings. The dazzling rainbow of light dazzled everyone present. Liu Ming didn't recall much about fusing the secret realm energy core. After all, it was a rare treasure, rarely seen in later generations. He could only tentatively extend his 6th dimensional sensory tentacles, entangling the secret realm energy core with his spiritual perception, levitating it in midair. Suddenly, a massive torrent of information streamed from the secret realm energy core along its sensory tentacles into Liu Ming's brain, sending him into a splitting headache. It was like trying to cram 100 GB of data onto a 40 GB hard drive. The server, despite working furiously, kept complaining about insufficient memory. Liu Ming felt his head about to explode, and he immediately tried to withdraw his sensory tentacles to block the influx of information. But the Qingming Yuan Qi within him, unchecked, spontaneously swirled, its dark green tentacles reaching out towards the secret realm energy core. As if finding another information transmission interface, the secret realm energy core channeled a portion of the massive information flow, sending it along the Qingming tentacles. Countless pieces of information flowed through the Qingming Yuan Qi tentacles deep within Liu Ming's cells, reorganizing a biological database akin to a DNA strand to store this vast amount of information. As all the information poured into Liu Ming's body, a flash of astonishment crossed his eyes as he finally understood what all this information was. It was the untold history of the Crystal Cave secret realm, stretching back thousands and thousands of years, from its formation to the present day. Every detail of the countless creatures, plants, and mineral deposits within the Crystal Cave was imprinted in his mind, like a living map. The histories of various races and the births and deaths of various species all transformed into information that flowed into his body. Countless bits of information reorganized within his cells, and moments later, the entire Crystal Cave unfolded in his mind like a 3D map. He not only had a complete understanding of every vein of raw stone and minerals within the Crystal Cave, but he could also see Ko Xian Lang and his companions slay 4 already battered monsters, speeding towards the spatial passageway. He could also see the cave where the Guzguz tribe resided, even the subtle expressions on each Guzguz's face. Liu Ming felt like an omniscient god, aware of everything within the Crystal Cave secret realm. But he knew this was just an illusion. This ability was perhaps the true power of the secret realm energy core. Within the secret realm, he knew everything, like a god. PS. First update here. 2 more to come. It's a new week again, and the support from brothers is pouring in quickly. Please recommend, reward, and support. Chapter 122, Passage Close D, Sacrifice the Insect King. Before Liu Ming's eyes, the secret realm energy core had shrunk to a tiny ball of multicolored light. He knew that once he absorbed this energy, this rare treasure would vanish from the world. But without hesitation, the Yuan Qi tentacles within his body surged forth once more. Within a few dozen breaths, the dark green tentacles had completely devoured the multicolored light. The multicolored light and the dark green Qingming Yuan Qi tentacles mingled, like dye, painting the dark green Yuan Qi a vibrant riot of color. Then, before the Yuan Qi tentacles could fully retract, the two reacted like two chemical reagents. The once cold King Ming Yuan Qi suddenly became incredibly hot, emitting a scorching wave that threatened to sweep across the surroundings. Then, the Yuan Qi's energy surged, rising like mushrooms after a rain. 1.31, 1.32, 1.33, 1.34, 1.35, 1.36, and finally, the energy level finally stopped at 1.38, the late deal level. But the look of astonishment in Liu Ming's eyes remained lingering. In an instant, his energy level, having only recently entered deal level, had been forcibly raised to the late deal level, nearing seal level. Was this the true purpose of the secret realm energy core? Liu Ming couldn't know the answer for now, because the secret realm energy core had vanished the moment he officially reached energy level 1.38, transforming entirely into a part of his Yuan Qi. Liu Ming instinctively swung his Yuan Qi, and a dark green Yuan Qi blade flashed, creating ripples in the air like water being swept by a water wheel. No, that wasn't air, it was space. Spatial ripples? Liu Ming was stunned. He eagerly used his insight to observe the properties of his Yuan Qi. King Ming Yuan Qi, energy level 1.38, properties, thick, lingering, corrosive, violent, evil, fire, and space. Liu Ming took a deep breath, unable to contain the joy in his eyes. Does it really possess the ability of space? Space and time are considered the two most powerful properties, but he could never remember hearing of any true legend of a powerful being with time powers. However, he had heard rumors of those with spatial abilities, truly powerful figures who could decide the lives of thousands with a single thought, and whose stomps could shake entire cities. It's safe to say that in all of Wuling City, there isn't a single person with pure spatial abilities, not even those who possess the spatial gates of high-level magicians. And the surprises didn't stop there. Liu Ming unexpectedly discovered that, following the evil dragon curse power, his many abilities had also included a spatial cutting blade. With a casual stroke of his right palm, a dark, inky glow flashed from the edge of his palm. Space flashed in this inky light, as if it were being sliced open. Ripple spread around the cut, but it instantly returned to normal. After enjoying himself, Liu Ming looked at his stunned subordinates and said, "Let's get ready to leave." He stretched out his hands and pulled forward, opening the space like a curtain, revealing a circle of shimmering white light, identical to the previous spatial passage. He then leaped into the circle of light, his mind seemingly guided by a mysterious force. As he moved through the spatial passage, Liu Ming identified a direction and rushed towards it. With another pull, the exit of the spatial passage appeared before him. He leaped down, landing on an open square surrounded by a dense, towering forest of trees. He had returned to the treehouse square. The spatial passage was 2 or 3 meters above the ground. Marjan and the others leaped out one after another, with Sumi and Zhenirang's massive bodies squeezing out last. Liu Ming watched as everyone returned without missing a beat. He ignored the shocked faces of those who had gathered around him and jumped into the spatial passage again. He still had unfinished business. Upon returning to the Crystal Cave secret realm, he saw Lu Zuan and the military still guarding the spatial tunnel through his omniscient perspective. The military and the other 2 groups had lost everything this time, save for the corpses of 4 C-rank monsters. They were far from willing to let Liu Ming go. They were all on high alert, ready to trap him if he attempted to return to the real world through the spatial tunnel. But their plans were likely in vain, Liu Ming thought. He stared intently at the naturally formed spatial tunnel through his omniscient perspective, his eyes instantly turning silver white, and he remained motionless, like an emotionless statue. The air beneath the spatial tunnel suddenly thickened, and everyone felt a deep sense of discomfort. It was as if they were being squeezed by an invisible force, and the pressure grew stronger, severely hindering even normal movement. With this pressure, a sudden, intense suction surged from the spatial tunnel above, sucking ordinary evolvers through the air without a second to struggle. The E and D level evolvers only managed to hold on for a few seconds longer. Ultimately, only Ko Xianlong, Lu Zuan, and Ni Kangzong remained struggling. Ko Xianlong plunged his staff into the ground to resist the suction, while Lu Zuan conjured a giant hand of yellow sand to grip the ground firmly. Ni Kangzong also plunged his sword into the ground. But the suction grew stronger, and so did the pressure within the space. Even those with the strongest bodies were on the verge of vomiting blood under the immense pressure. Finally, under the combined force of the suction and pressure of the spatial channel, they were forced to let go and flew back into the space channel. Seeing the last three obstructing figures finally disappear, Liu Ming recovered from his statue-like state and closed the space channel. This was an ability he had gained after absorbing the vast information of the Secret Realm's energy core. He used the Secret Realm's exclusive nature to repel all outside life. Naturally, he, the fusionist and controller of the Secret Realm's energy core, was not among them. Liu Ming's eyes flashed with excitement at the thought of the entire Secret Realm being practically his own, but then he regained his composure. Now was not the time to explore the Secret Realm. With this thought in mind, he stepped into the spatial passage he had previously formed and returned to the treehouse square. As he leaped down from the air and returned to the treehouse square, he saw a crowd of people gathered in the night, already surrounding the entire passageway in 3 layers. "What's this for?" Liu Ming asked, frowning. Boss, we are just worried about you and waiting for you to come out," they explained in unison. "It's okay, disperse. Go back and rest. We'll talk tomorrow morning if you have anything to say," Liu Ming said, glancing at the dark night sky. Nearly 13 or 14 hours had passed since the Secret Realm appeared, and it was already late at night. At Liu Ming's words, despite their immense curiosity about what had happened, the crowd reluctantly dispersed. Liu Ming then turned and headed towards the 4-color altar. "Mortal, long time no see. If it weren't for your altar master's mark still there, I would have thought you were dead." The priestess clearly had no good words for Liu Ming and immediately began to complain about him. Liu Ming ignored her and simply took out all his recent gains. A pile of demon hunting instruments filled a corner of the altar, containing the bodies of purple vine corpse demons, the bodies of C-rank corpse wizards, the severed tails of crystal night giant anacondas, and numerous monster sacrifices of V-rank and above. Finally, Liu Ming took out the current top-level sacrifice, which he had high hopes for, the body of the Holy Fire Beetle King. "Huh!" the priestess exclaimed in surprise at the sight of the Holy Fire Beetle King's dismembered body. A flicker of joy flashed in Liu Ming's eyes. The last time he heard such a sound was when he sacrificed the lava fiery hound. It was that sacrifice that gave him explosive power and physical fitness almost comparable to that of a warrior of his level, as well as powerful molten fire abilities. P.S. The second update is here, and the third update will be later. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 123 Holy Fire Demon Puppet, Turret Manual. This is a sacrifice with extraordinary potential. Perhaps you should sacrifice its head alone, the priestess suggested earnestly. Her previous suggestion had helped Liu Ming obtain the lava heart, so Liu Ming chose to sacrifice it alone without a moment's hesitation. The priestess waved her scepter, and countless colorful light streaks surged from the void toward the head of the Holy Fire Beetle King. The Holy Fire Beetle King's round, white head gradually transformed into countless streaks of light and vanished into the endless void at the end of the light streak. Meanwhile, an equally pure white ball of divine grace materialized from nothing in the air before Liu Ming. Liu Ming eagerly reached out and grasped the human-sized ball of divine grace, and the message of divine grace immediately dawned on his mind. Holy Fire Demon Puppet, Grey 4-star, top rare, a terrifying war puppet combining reconnaissance, group attack, and single target attack capabilities. Its shell is nearly indestructible at its own energy level, and it can evolve by consuming all available energy. Before he could even take a closer look, Liu Ming had already begun sacrificing his next sacrifice. Finally, all the offerings accumulated over the past few days vanished into a hazy void, transformed into streaks of light. Only 4 divinely gifted items remained on the altar. Flame Dragon Wing Cloak, Grey 6-star ultra rare. This mysterious cloak, crafted primarily from the wings of a flame-type dragon, grants its wearer flight speeds comparable to a pterosaur. Abilities: Flame Dragon Shield, Sonic Phantom. Effects: Dragon Wing Flutter, Flame Domain. Upon reading the description, Liu Ming immediately retrieved the cloak, which blazed like a ball of flame within the divinely gifted light. The blazing crimson flames felt like a cold, indifferent light, leaving no trace of heat in his hands. Liu Ming swung the cloak, and the flames vanished, and reignited in an instant. On the back of the cloak were 2 dragon wing designs, resembling the wings of a real dragon as the cloak fluttered. With a flick of his mental power, the 2 dragon wing designs instantly transformed into 2 vast, blazing wings, their scales clearly visible, scales formed from the crimson flames. Then, he instinctively flapped his wings, and his entire body soared into the air. However, due to the limited space in the ticket hall, Liu Ming couldn't fly high. After a few breaths of flight, he set his sights on the second divine grace ball of light, a dark purple one. Liu Ming reached out with his right hand and pulled out a round, almost blackish purple bead from the ball of light. Lightning flashed periodically on the bead's surface, and bursts of thunder rumbled faintly from within, sounding impressive. Thunder of the God's Fury, Grey 4-star, top rare, a divine thunder crafted from harvested divine thunder, thrown with a sense of perception, to trigger a massive explosion. Liu Ming glanced at it before carefully putting it away. The power of this bead was undoubtedly comparable to the Sandstorm Dragon that Lu Zuan had used against the Holy Fire Beetle King and Ni Kangzhang's Blade Energy Prison. He then looked at the next divine grace. Intermediate Wild Summoning Ring, white 9 stars, top rare. Based on their strength, the user pays a price in energy to summon a feral creature of a corresponding power level to aid in battle. Liu Ming placed the wild summoning ring directly on his left ring finger and then injected his primal key into it, activating its sole ability, intermediate wild summoning. 2 giant wild wolves, nearly a man's height with fangs and sharp claws, suddenly appeared. As his primal key continued to flow, a massive brown bear, 3 or 4 meters tall, appeared before him. Liu Ming was secretly delighted. He had summoned 2 top-level F-rank feral creatures and 1 E-rank feral creature without even consuming a tenth of his total primal key. This was also a rare treasure in this era, and if used wisely, it could be a valuable trump card. He also had a vague feeling that the giant bear wasn't the strongest of the feral summons, but he was eager to research other divine favors, so he could only study this ring from this point forward. Liu Ming waved his left hand, and 3 feral summoned creatures dissipated into energy, dispersing into the air. Unlike Kemenwen and Gorin, these creatures were merely projections of energy, not physical entities. He then reached into the divine grace bestowed upon him by the sacrifice of the Holy Fire Beetle King's head, and snatched out a fist-sized white honeycomb-shaped sphere blazing with white flames. After releasing it, Liu Ming's grip revealed that the sphere, surprisingly, did not fall to the ground, but instead hovered in mid-air. Liu Ming controlled the sphere, swelling it upwards, downwards, left, and right, seemingly as if it were his own body. This mysterious puppet, known as the Holy Fire Demon Golem, was known as a war puppet and presumably possessed considerable offensive capabilities. To test its destructive power, Liu Ming guided it out of the ticket hall and toward the plaza. Throughout its flight, controlled by Liu Ming's consciousness, the Holy Fire Demon Golem resembled a flying reconnaissance vehicle with countless cameras. Liu Ming could receive holographic images from it in all directions, allowing him to see almost every angle of the sphere without a single blind spot. Furthermore, his vision was as far as if he were wearing a telescope, far superior to his own enhanced vision after several evolutions. Is this what he called reconnaissance? Liu Ming's face lit up with delight. This first ability already satisfied him deeply. He then began to study the Holy Fire Demonic Puppet's mass attack. As soon as the mass attack command was issued, several pillars of white flame instantly shot out from the demonic puppet's honeycomb-like holes. Upon impact, the pillars exploded like rockets. One pillar completely shattered a pickup truck, while others struck the concrete pavement outside the square, creating massive craters several meters deep. The power of this explosion was over 10 times greater than his own Scholard Ray. The power of the evil dragon's curse would likely require a salvo of 20 or 30 to achieve this level of power. Immediately, the sphere spun rapidly, transforming into a ball of white fire. The flames shot out at a speed too fast to be seen with the naked eye, trailing a white comet-like tail. Like a white meteorite falling from the sky, it blasted the ground hundreds of meters away, creating a hole 10 meters in diameter and unfathomably deep. The surface, impacted by the impact, showed signs of complete melting and crystallization. A powerful earthquake-like tremor awoke even those who had fallen asleep in the train station. A house near the roadside was struck by the aftermath and collapsed with a bang. This was the Holy Fire Demon puppet's single target attack. C-rank attack. A flicker of shock flashed across Liu Ming's eyes before he contentedly put the Holy Fire Demon puppet away. He hadn't expected this sacrifice to yield not only 4 top tier and rare divine favors, but also the Holy Fire Demon puppet, a powerful weapon with a C-rank attack power. The Holy Fire Demon puppet's destructive power surpassed that of himself, Zilong, and Sumi, becoming his ultimate trump card. As he walked back, Liu Ming flipped through the last divine favor. Turret Construction Manual, a mysterious manual for building various turrets, including arcane arrow turret, catapult turret, molten turret, frost turret, electromagnetic turret, mana medium turret, mana heavy turret, and many other powerful turrets. This requires sufficient rare materials and energy crystals. After reading the Divine Grace message, Liu Ming became excited and began to quickly flip through the turret manual. The more he read, the more delighted he became. In the long run, this turret manual might be his greatest gain tonight, besides the secret realm energy core. PS. Here's the third update from yesterday. I fell asleep while typing again. Embarrassing. Chapter 124. Fast misunderstanding. Stone Fort Arrow Tower. Earthquake. Just as the Holy Fire demonic puppet, trailing a white comet tail, transformed into a meteorite, leaving a massive crater on the road, and collapsing a 3-story building, a wave of terrified cries echoed from the intensely shaking train station waiting hall. Everyone was fast asleep, sprawled on the mats, blankets, and quilts. Gong Weeksin and her search team had gathered from the mall that day. Gong Weeksin was a leader known for her empathy for her subordinates. Liu Ming would never have considered providing blankets and quilts for these ordinary people, and even if he had wanted to, he probably wouldn't have done it. Amidst the cries of alarm, the awakened civilians scrambled from their blankets and quilts in panic, frantically trying to flee the hall. But as the shaking subsided, they forcibly stopped their urge to flee to open ground. Everyone was puzzled. An earthquake couldn't just be a single tremor, but what else could it be? Could it be a monster? A monster capable of such a commotion was simply unimaginable. Even though many of the people in the waiting hall had never personally wielded weapons and fought monsters, the numerous battles they had witnessed over the past few days had given them a more direct understanding of the monster's terrifying power. While the ordinary people were still discussing in panic, the evolved classes, each armed, were already rushing in groups of 3 or 4 towards the direction of the tremors. As the combatants moved out, the ordinary people watched from behind with concern. Most of them had chosen to stay behind yesterday. Since they had chosen to stay, they naturally knew that this wasn't the underground garage shelter, with its solid concrete walls and iron gates blocking out the man-eating monsters outside. In this practically open-air shelter, their true safety wasn't the walls or iron gates, but the powerful evolved classes before them. It was these combatants who formed a human wall to hold back the monsters. If they couldn't stop them, everyone would be dead. Therefore, no one could maintain the same indifferent attitude as in the underground garage shelter. At that moment, most of them were thinking that the battle outside the iron gates had little to do with them. But the current situation was hopeless. No one dared to deny that the battle before them had anything to do with them. Even the walls meant to keep the monsters out hadn't been fully repaired. All they could see was the glass door of the waiting hall. Even if they tried to hide their heads like ostriches, they could still see the ferocious monsters outside. In the dim starlight, everyone could see a dark, human-like figure approaching the soldiers heading in their direction. Seeing the fierce soldiers, the figure remained unmoved, simply advancing step by step. More than a dozen of the soldiers held flashlights, but the distance was too great, and the beams from the dozens of flashlights couldn't clearly illuminate the figure's true form. However, they could vaguely make out blood-red hair or something else behind the figure, rustling in the howling night wind, sending chills down everyone's spines. As one soldier's flashlight was about to shine on the figure, everyone's heart leaped to their throats. The monster that had caused that earthquake-like commotion was absolutely terrifying, and everyone was worried for the combatants. Go back, I've taken care of everything. As a figure approached, a familiar voice reassured everyone. Liu Ming's figure was revealed beneath the beams of more than a dozen flashlights, and the thing everyone had mistaken for flying red hair was, of course, Liu Ming's flame dragon wing cloak. Boss, what was that just now? The many members of the search team were all surprised. It's Mr. Liu. That loud noise must have been from fighting that monster. That's right, he must have fought off that monster and protected everyone. Although Mr. Liu has a sharp tongue, I didn't expect him to be cold on the outside but warm on the inside. Given Mr. Liu's position, he's still working so hard to protect everyone. I'll have to work harder on building the wall tomorrow. Thank goodness I chose to stay. With a cold-faced hero like Mr. Liu guarding everyone at night, how can everyone's safety be in jeopardy? The ordinary people still watching from behind saw this scene, and their imagination suddenly exploded. They all imagined a touching scene of Liu Ming, alone outside the train station, desperately fighting off a powerful beast to protect everyone. Of course, Liu Ming himself didn't realize he had inadvertently staged another farce to win over everyone. He casually responded to the crowd with a few words, and returned to the treehouse. After flipping through the turret construction manual, Liu Ming began his daily key training. Thanks to the closure of his 5 senses, practicing in the 6th dimension of perception brought a sleep-like effect on mental and physical recovery. Otherwise, if he continued to stay awake for a long time, even Liu Ming, as an evolver, would probably die from overwork. The next day, Liu Ming got up early with some anticipation in his heart. Today was the day to test the true purpose of the turret creation manual, and as he had just conquered the Crystal Cave secret realm, he had no shortage of rare materials and energy crystals. Rough stones were the highest grade energy crystals. When Liu Ming walked out of the treehouse villa and came to the treehouse square, he found that he was not the first one to get up today. There was someone who got up earlier than him and was practicing swordsmanship in the square, swinging his long sword with a whirring sound. Good morning, Liu Ming. Gone weeks in, dressed in white, stopped when she heard the footsteps and smiled at Liu Ming for the first time. Liu Ming was puzzled, wondering what had gotten into this woman, who had always been cold and indifferent to him, only enjoying his humiliation, to smile at him. He replied expressionlessly, "Good morning." Gone weeks and continued, "I just saw the scene where you fought the monster yesterday. That monster was indeed very powerful. I had trouble blocking its attacks." Hearing this, Liu Ming was speechless. His casual remark yesterday, "It's resolved," had been conjured up into such a scene, and the giant crater created by the holy fire demon puppet's impact was even taken as proof. He was at a loss for words, only to laugh and shake his head, acknowledging Gong Weekson's wishful thinking. Crossing the street to the sidewalk across from the treehouse plaza, Liu Ming paced along the ash wall. Looking before him, the 4-meter-high wall, resembling a red crystal, now encompassed nearly 3/5 of the train station. Liu Ming's face lit up with satisfaction. It seemed everyone had been diligent during his visit to the Crystal Cave. Otherwise, such progress would have been impossible. Of course, this was also due to the instructions he had given the 4 clay golems before leaving. They were still tirelessly building the wall behind the train station. Finally, he strolled back to the high archway on the sidewalk opposite the train station. Standing in front of a 4-story residential building just 5 or 6 meters away from the ash-filled wall, Liu Ming pulled out the turret construction manual and flipped to page 3. Each page of the turret construction manual contained a drawing for a different type of arrow turret. Page 3 featured a structure called the Stone Fort Arrow Tower. The drawing depicted a towering gray-white structure, resembling a fortress built of rock. It featured 8 firing ports, arranged in 4 directions on 2 levels, from which sharp arrows could be fired to injure the enemy. The tower was primarily constructed of a vast amount of sturdy stone, and stone was ubiquitous to Liu Ming. Using telepathy, he summoned Ji Zhenrong and pointed to the residential building before him, asking, "Ji Zhenrong, can you knock this house down? P.S. Here's a first update. Chapter 125, Pushing Over Houses, The Power of the Arrow Tower." Ji Zhenrong answered Liu Ming's question with action. He opened his maw wide at Liu Ming, tilted his head toward the house before him, and roared. He exhaled a scorching breath through the foggy morning air, blowing away the mist. Then, as if gathering strength, Rang dropped to all fours, stretched his neck and body, and suddenly thrust his head forward. A stream of muddy yellow earth-based dragon breath erupted with his movement, and an earth-based gravity field erupted. In an instant, countless flying sand and rocks enveloped the bucket-sized dragon breath, transforming it into a pillar of sand and stone several men could hold in their arms. A resounding crash echoed as the dragon breath and sand and rocks slammed into the house from the side, breaking through the wall and bursting into the building. The dragon breath then pierced the entire building, stretching over 10 meters, and exited through the other wall of the 4-story building. The impact left the house shattered, as if struck by a heavy artillery shell. At this point, Rang also stopped breathing dragon breath, twisting his millstone-sized head in a flattering manner to look at Liu Ming. Liu Ming chuckled, walked over, gently patted Rang's cold, hard skin, and praised, "Well done. Keep going." It seemed that the Newfound dragon salamander, gifted with earth, was indeed a skilled demolitionist. Liu Ming had already had his men search the area near the train station for the past few days, and he had the search team bring back the few remaining survivors. Because the train station was the lair of the lava firehounds and their vicious dogs were rampant, coupled with the cannibalism of corpses and various monsters, the area was already sparsely populated. So, Liu Ming recklessly ordered Rang to demolish the building. Rang's large eyes narrowed in enjoyment at his master's praise. Then, he unleashed breath after breath of incredibly powerful dragon breath, and soon the entire building was shaking. Rang exhaled a final breath of dragon breath. The moment it released this breath, it pounced immediately after. When the dragon's breath collided with the entire building, it, under the power of its rock armor, transformed into a giant beast the size of a medium-sized bus, slamming into the residential building. Boom. The 4-story building, over 10 meters high, collapsed like a camel's back, crushed by the impact of Rang's massive body, which now weighed no less than 20 tons. Seeing Rang emerge from the billowing dust and smoke from the collapsed building, Liu Ming hurried over to praise him, before heading toward the rubble. Standing on the collapsed wall, he picked up a piece of rubble the size of a human head, a flicker of satisfaction in his eyes. These would be the materials for his stone fort arrow tower. Opening the page in the turret construction manual that described the stone fort arrow tower, Liu Ming withdrew a large piece of raw stone from the crystal cave and channeled the mysterious power of creation contained in the manual. Guided by his perceptive spiritual power, a mysterious force of creation surged frantically toward the raw stone. Immediately, the stone emanated a dazzling white light, and the rubble, illuminated by the light, slowly began to levitate, as if freed from the constraints of gravity. Countless fragments flew towards the raw stone in front of Liu Ming's chest. Startled, Liu Ming quickly dodged. Under the mysterious force of creation, the fragments, large and small, unexpectedly joined together. Even smaller fragments filled the uneven gaps between the fragments that didn't seamlessly join. In less than 10 minutes, the fragments had coalesced into a 7 to 8 meter tall greystone tower. 8 black firing ports, arranged in 2 tiers, faintly revealed their sharp edges, creating a formidable presence. However, the tower itself seemed to be shattered, its fragments seemingly held together only temporarily by a mysterious force. If this force were lost, the tower would instantly disintegrate into fragments. Upon seeing this, Liu Ming immediately produced another large piece of rough stone, and, guided by his perceptive mental power, flew towards the tower. As the rough stone approached the tower's white light, it was instantly absorbed by the light, like a sugar cube meeting boiling water. Then, an even more dazzling white light erupted, smoothing out all the cracks on the tower like a giant hand of creation. A few minutes later, the entire tower appeared, as if formed by nature, without a single crack. And where the rough stone had been suspended, a towering grey-white tower, 8 meters tall, rose from the ground. Liu Ming felt his tiny mental power completely merge with the tower, completely under his control, like an extension of his mind. He casually pointed at a large tree before him. A lightning-fast black beam shot out from the tower's firing port at high speed. With a resounding bang, only half of the tree's trunk remained bare, the rest reduced to a pile of broken branches and leaves in the onslaught of the black beam. Liu Ming was very pleased with the arrow tower's attack power. According to the turret construction manual, this type of arrow tower was only one of the lowest level creations, and the sharp dark attack just now had reached the late E level. The constant stream of fire from the 8 black holes in the firing ports was a hail of arrows from no less than 80 level archers, raining down arrows from above. However, the arrow tower's location was somewhat awkward. It was located exactly where the energy crystal, activated by the power of creation, was placed. Because it was a first-time construction project and lacked experience, this first arrow tower was built next to a collapsed house. Considering the 4-meter height of the ash wall, this position was likely too far for a tower to defend. Just as Liu Ming was about to turn around to check the distance, he saw Gong Weixin, who seemed to have been standing behind him. "Why are you here? You made such a commotion so early in the morning. Where else would I be if I wasn't here?" Gong Weixin replied with a puzzled look. Seeing that Liu Ming ignored her after his question and instead devoted himself to studying his newly constructed mysterious tower, Gong Weixin frowned slightly and curled her lips. "You continue with your work. I'm going to practice my sword skills." With that, she turned and left. Liu Ming didn't even notice her departure, as his attention was completely focused on the stone fortress's arrow tower. There was a small door at the bottom of the tower, made entirely of stone, yet incredibly sturdy. Liu Ming gently pushed it open and entered the tower's interior. The tower contained a circular space of 20 to 30 square meters, with a circular corridor leading to the firing ports above. Liu Ming ascended the stone steps. The tower consisted of 3 levels, a main hall on the first level, 4 firing ports on the second level, and 4 firing ports on the third level. In front of the firing ports stood a hexagonal stone platform, upon which rested a single rough stone. Stone arms extended from the 6 corners of the platform, holding the stone in place. Mysterious black light flickered from the stone surface. "Attack!" Liu Ming commanded in his mind. The raw stone on the stone platform suddenly erupted with a violent energy surge. A sharp black arrow, palm length and arm thick, instantly duck-shaped shot out at high speed, instantly piercing a gaping hole in the wall of a house hundreds of meters away from the arrow tower. Liu Ming sensed that the energy in the raw stone had only decreased by 150th with this single attack. He nodded in satisfaction, indicating that this firing port could still launch hundreds of attacks. Looking at the square firing port, which was about 30 to 40 centimeters long, Liu Ming thought to himself, "We can station a few more archers here and have Gong Ruohan reinforce the stone fortress arrow tower gate." The energy arrows, combined with the rain of arrows from the professional archers, could withstand the siege of at least dozens of E-level monsters, as long as the arrow tower gate remained intact. PS. Second update here. A little late. Good night, brothers. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.